Hi there everybody, hope you're doing well. I welcome you to this pre-scene analysis part 1. Before starting with part 1, please be very sure, very certain about the industry analysis. Then start with part 1. We are going to give you the PDF, the pre-scene in two ways. A video where I will first explain everything and then a PDF form as well so you can read through it, annotate it at your own pace as well. My suggestion is first watch the entire pre-scene start to finish 2 times. Part 1, part 2, part 3, watch it 2 times very carefully. And then you can only read through the annotated PDF because you are not going to have time to keep going through the same stuff again and again and again and again. So first, very concentrated way, go through the entire pre-scene 2 times. I guarantee you, you will understand everything you need to know about your company. So I welcome you on this pre-scene experience. My suggestion is concentrate, carefully follow my instructions and carefully understand the direction which I am providing, and it will help you understand, know your company from the start to the end. See, whatever route you are from, exemptions route, FLP route, pathway route, whatever route you are on, the pre-scene importance is the same. How to use the pre-scene, what the pre-scene is, I will cover for you. I welcome you on this experience. Let's start. So we are beginning with the introduction now. Now in this pre-scene, what we are going to try to do is always achieve 3 goals. Number 1, understand my company. Number 2, highlight key revision areas, key themes around which questions can come up, and also key E, P, and F focus points, which we will give you. And number 3 is to help you use this information. See, when we are learning about our company, but if we don't use it in the right way, when we go to mocks or when you write your final exam as well, if you don't use this information within your answer, you are not going to be showcasing good skills as a senior finance manager. Because any senior finance manager, if you think of it, gives an opinion keeping in mind your company's details, your company's culture, your company's past. If you don't know your company's details, culture, and past, which is this pre-scene, how will you write a good, solid answer? So these 3 are the main goals that we focus on while doing our pre-scene analysis. And to help you, we go through the video explanation, plus we give you an annotated pre-scene document that you're seeing on your screen, which I'm using for this video, to help you again narrow down, focus down on the important areas to read through by yourself as well. So the company given to us is called Kwirtmak. We already know the name. So Kwirtmak is a quoted company that builds commercial 3D printers to customer specifications. So we are a manufacturing company which is quoted on the stock exchange, listed on the stock exchange. These printers can be tailored to a variety of tasks. You are a senior manager in Kwirtmak's finance function. You report directly to the board and advise on special projects and strategic matters. So now when we read an excerpt from the pre-scene, what we try to do is always highlight the important points, important words for you, so that you can, so that you can know that, okay, this is important, so that we can make a relation to it to our E3, P3 and F3 syllabus. See, remember, there is always analysis which we are doing, and then there is extra analysis, over analysis, which we don't want to do because that can also turn out to be an enemy. So we want to limit to the most important aspects so we can achieve our 3 goals. So okay, we are a quoted company. This very clearly means you're listed on the stock exchange. There will be rules, regulations which you will have to follow. There will be corporate governance rules which your company will have to follow. We build commercial 3D printers to customer specifications. This means you are rather focusing on a differentiation strategy, because you are trying to give the customer what they exactly want. So the word customer specification is giving us insight into what Kwirtmak is as a business. We just don't make 3D printers and stock them. We make them to customer specification, showcasing my differentiation. Now, always remember, a listed company will face pressures for strong financial performance. Because you are listed, you are visible, your financial performance, your financial ratios become very, very important. So we are listed, we are quoted on the stock exchange, there will be rules, regulations which I will have to follow. All of this, your corporate governance links to your P3 syllabus, your let's say differentiation strategy that we spoke about. More on Kwirtmak's actual operations and strategies coming deeper into the pre-scene. But when I see something, when I see an important word, I want to discuss it. So, okay. P3, corporate governance, my differentiation strategy, E3, my financial overall strategy, because I am a listed company. Now, my suggestion is you should be making a topic list. I will give you obviously my topic list. I'm going to show you what my topic list obviously looks like. So I've just put my screen to my topic list, something which you should be aiming to create for students that are studying with us. You will have access to this topic list. We'll tell you how to use it in tandem to our Fin AI, our revision bot, to exactly give you answers which are specific for Kwirtmak. We'll tell you how to do that. But you should be creating a list of topics which we are discussing as part of the pre-scene, so that you can narrow on them and so that you can zero in on them. And this topic list and this pre-scene is specific for Kwirtmak only. As you can see, it keeps changing depending on the case, depending on our analysis. And over here we have covered a whole bunch of topics for you which I have already discussed, like competitive strategy, like the value drivers, like the differentiation strategy. But it also includes topics which are going to come up deeper into the pre-scene, like the new concepts like Gen AI, the new AI, the new additions to your E3 syllabus, the Gen AI concepts. Your F3 additions, if I just scroll down quickly to showcase, within F3 itself, the sources of finance, including green finance, which was also an addition, is going to come up. So my suggestion is, whenever you are making, or rather going through the pre-scene, through me or through by yourself, just try to highlight the important areas, important revision aspects for you, because that, after understanding the company, it will give you direction to revise. It will give you direction to study before you actually take on mock questions with us. So this topic list becomes an invaluable resource, and when you combine it with our Fin AI, it completely takes your learning to the next level. So keep creating your topic list, keep adding to your topic list, and for any questions you can always reach out. But this topic list is something that you should continuously keep doing as an exercise. Coming back now, Kwirtmak's head office is located in England, a developed country that has an active and well-regulated stock exchange. The currency is e-dollars. So it's a fictional country called England and a fictional currency called e-dollars. England requires companies to prepare their financial statements in accordance to the IFRS rules. Now, very important over here is that it's an active and well-regulated stock exchange, which further means, if it's well regulated, your corporate governance rules, the accountability of the board of directors, because Kwirtmak is likely to face greater scrutiny from investors, regulators, other stakeholders, especially because it's a well regulated stock exchange. So as we go deeper, we will be analyzing the actual structure of Kwirtmak. We will be actually analyzing, the gaps within our corporate governance. But when and where I find something important, I will keep bringing it up. Now, Enland's currency is e-dollar. This is going to be the source of currency risk questions. As we go deeper on, we are going to learn that Enland trades internationally. So it sells globally. Because we sell globally, there are going to be different currencies involved. This gives rise to currency risk, economic risk. Now, when you are on the strategic case study exam, while doing the pre-scene, I recommend students to make two lists. One of the topics and one of the risks which your company will face. Why? Because risk management and everything related to risk, which also links to internal controls, internal audit from P3, is a major testable chunk which often gets tested in the exam. That is why I recommend, okay, you are making your topic list like I showed you. Let's say number 1, corporate governance rules. Number 2, where we learned about financial strategy. Number 3, differentiation strategy. Whatever your topic list is, side by side, make a list risk that, okay, economic risk I have covered, currency risk I have covered, product risk I have covered. Just try to note down the risk and a one line explanation of why that risk is relevant for my company. Later on, again, deeper into the pre-scene, you'll find these lists to be invaluable because they have given us a risk register as well, sort of risk register deeper into the pre-scene. When analyzing that, if you already have your list of risks ready and your list of risks understood, you can make much more better sense of our company. Again, the 3 objectives of the pre-scene will be very well achieved if we keep making these lists. Understanding my company, always noting down key areas, and number 3, you will have a lot of information to use when the time comes. So that was the introduction to my company. You see, just within the introduction, you would normally, if you're doing it, you'll just blitz through this information. But when you're doing it with us, we slowly guide you to all of the words, all of the lines, and make relevant implications for you so that you can revise important topics, plus you understand the company. So now they've given us 3D printing industry background. Now for my students, I have done an extra industry analysis already. So when you go through my industry analysis, you already have industry background before you start with this pre-scene. So I highly recommend the industry analysis. It's not too much detail. It's just a 30-minute go through of what this industry is even before you start with the pre-scene. Because very few of us will have direct knowledge and access to the background of 3D printing. It's such a specific industry. If it were electric cars, if it were something more generic like mobile phone making company, all of us are a little bit more comfortable. But because this is such a specific industry, first a basic industry analysis which we run you through, then picking up the pre-scene makes a little bit more sense, and that is why we create our extra industry analysis. But nevertheless, in this pre-scene itself, they have given us some industry background. Now this becomes very important for me to understand because they have given me specific industry background about the industry in which Kwirtmak operates. To be a good finance manager, a senior finance manager, which is your role, you need to have solid external market, let's say, news or external market knowledge. Or rather, you yourself should have conducted a solid external market analysis. This is within your E3 syllabus. So your different models which help you create external market analysis, like the Porter's 5 forces, like the Pestel, like the Porter's diamond, become important for you to have in your mind while you're doing this industry background. Because remember, you are looking at it from the position of a senior finance manager at Kwirtmak. So if you don't know your market, how will you suggest what your business should do and shouldn't do? So let's start. 3D printing or additive manufacturing is a process whereby items are constructed by building up layers of material. Layers of material are built up on each other to actually create your solid object. These items are designed in computer-aided design software. Now, different types of printers can manufacture items in plastic, metal, or organic matter. So, it's designed within a software, and the actual manufactured item can be plastic or metal or organic matter, whatever you want it to be. 3D printers vary in size and in sophistication, and naturally in cost, starting with small units that are suitable for hobbyists to large units that can create parts for commercial applications. So 3D printers can be for small users as well as large users within big multinational companies as well. The commercial applications of this technology include prototyping new products and the manufacture of some bespoke items. So where is it currently being used? Currently, it's being used to prototype new products. Somebody wants to make a new bottle or a new part for a motorcycle. Prototyping new products, currently it's being used for that, and to the manufacture of some bespoke items as well. 3D printing starts with a three-dimensional digital model of an object. So what I'm trying to do through this pre-scene is help you visualize and understand what a 3D printing business does. Plus, I will obviously keep making relevant E3, P3 and F3 links for you. So 3D printing starts with a three-dimensional digital model of an object. First, it's a digital model. The printer creates a physical object by building up a succession of thin layers of materials. It's designed within a computer, and then based on the instructions of the computer, the 3D printer creates a physical object by building up thin layers of material. This technology offers significant benefits because of its speed, its accuracy. For example, an engineer can edit a digital model of any object using the software before sending the result to the 3D printer. Quickly change the design, quickly get it done. It can be so much more accurate. It can be so much better for an engineer. That's why the market for 3D printers has really picked up. Now the production process over here is built around software and digital marketing. So this is clearly linking to digital technologies. This is clearly a technology-led industry. So strategic success for a company like Kwirtmak will depend heavily on my digital capability, on keeping pace with technological change, with my innovation. So now when I go deeper and I start analyzing Kwirtmak, I want to see what am I doing in terms of digital disruption? What am I doing in terms of innovation? This is your E3 syllabus. And it's also tested within your core areas. So we'll tell you that, okay, these topics have not been picked randomly. These topics have been picked because they relate specifically to your core areas. And the core areas are what you're going to be tested upon in the exam. So, okay, digitally being capable is very important in this industry. Now, the commercial use of 3D printing for prototyping and bespoke manufacturing links to my generic strategies again. Remember, if you do something different, if you set yourself apart, which you're already doing because you make 3D printers to customers' specifications. So this gives you competitive advantage. Now, because all of this digitization is being spoken about in your risks list, you should be adding strategic risk, operational risk, because there is heavy chance of something going wrong within the software because it's a software. So your technology risk, your operational risk, which is part of strategy, operational risk umbrella, is coming into the picture. So you see, this inherently is a very risky industry which I am part of because of the way things can go wrong. Now, 3D printing can be used to design and create prototypes of components that can be used to assist in design work. It is also possible to manufacture complex parts that would be difficult to fabricate. So it's the convenience of 3D printing is being given to you. All of this, remember, you are seeing as a senior finance manager at Kwirtmak. So all of this is important for me because this is pretty much telling me what are the needs of this market. The need is to be digital, to be quick, to be precise, to serve your customer, and to make sure that my printers are able to overcome the issues of traditional manufacturing methods. Only then people will want your printer, right? Traditional manufacturing methods such as machining and molding are generally more expensive than 3D printing when it comes to making individual units. To make individual units, prototypes, 3D printing is much better, much more accurate. They are often less accurate in terms of creating a physical object from a plan. 3D printing of parts can, however, be much more expensive than mass producing them. So actually putting it into production, mass production is cheaper. But 3D printing is generally used for the initial prototype when you're in the design, development, innovation phase. 3D printing is much better. So now this is pretty much an area for you to look at on expansion. Can we make our 3D printers or the process of 3D printing cheaper so that it can be slowly applied to mass production? These are all areas and avenues which we are understanding is a weakness of this market. So what is my company doing to be different? So, okay, the comparison with traditional manufacturing methods links to a good, solid competitor and industry analysis. Your external market analysis becomes very, very important over here. If you don't know what's happening in the market through different external market models, like the Pastel, Porter's 5 forces, then it will be difficult for you to understand these gaps. Okay, and this also brings up again just a mention of strategy risk. There's a strategic risk in using 3D printing in the wrong market. If a business tries to compete in areas where traditional mass production is more cost efficient, it would face pricing issues. If it faces pricing issues, it will no longer support or use your 3D printers. Essentially, issue for me as Kwirtmak. Now, 3D printing technology has been spoken of over here. So, in commercial settings, 3D printing applications usually start with the construction or edit of a model created in 3D CAD software. We already know this. The design stage can often be speeded up by scanning an object that requires modification using a high definition 3-dimensional scanner. So in the design stage, the scanning of the object can be done through a 3-dimensional scanner. Remember, all of this is cutting edge technology. Just the image of a scanner, just for reference, has been provided to you over here. That makes it possible to create 3D CAD files more quickly than by drawing the component entirely. It will take, lots of time. So scanner can be used and straight away it will be replicated within the software. You can then make your changes. Once the digital model has been drafted, the software splits the resulting object into a large number of very thin layers. Because remember, 3D printing goes layer by layer. Each layer is intended to be added to the object with a single pass of the printer. Each layer is too thin to be seen with a naked eye. So now we'll be wondering a little bit about why all of this information is being given to us. Because we at Kwirtmak, very clearly they told us that we operate in the additive manufacturing hardware market, which means we produce the 3D printers. So my products rely on CAD software, which is pretty much the first step. So first the CAD software is created, which is the design input. This then goes into my printer. So it becomes very important for my printers to be very much accessible, to be very much compatible with the latest 3D CAD software companies. Because if the software company's software and my printers are not collaborating, if they are not working together, then it will be a big issue for my customers. So essentially, CAD software stakeholders become very important for us. Companies that make CAD softwares, currently we don't do that. So this software making companies become very important stakeholders for me. So stakeholder management becomes very important. E3 syllabus. While managing stakeholders, there can be different risks, conflicts which can arise. This is your E3 syllabus. Now also, just at the back of my mind, this could be a little bit of an attractive adjacent diversification or expansion strategy for my business. It's like upstream diversification for me, because right now I am working with 3D CAD software companies. Can I have my own CAD software? Because we have been, or rather because we are in this market, we will know what the requirements are for my 3D printer. So this could be an expansion area or a theme that can come up. We will most definitely be having mock questions on this within our course, but just something that came to my mind as a discussion, so I thought I should bring it up. Or maybe a partnership with a CAD software company to come up with our own software. Anything along those lines as an expansion can give rise to a new strategy, a new diversification. F3 syllabus, different types of expansions, diversifications. And this obviously gives direct link to your strategy risk. There's a new strategy which might fail, operational risk. And if it turns out to be good, then it adds customer value, because value for the customer will enhance because you will be providing the customer with everything, a software, a printer, pretty much everything the customer needs. Just an idea. The final stage is to transfer the processed file to the 3D printer. So everything ready in the software goes to the 3D printer, which creates a solid object that corresponds exactly with the digital model. Whatever the digital model is, solid object is created. There are several types of 3D printers. Each printer uses a specific material. 3D printing can create objects from plastic, nylon, ceramic, metal, resin. Any material can be used to create the object depending on your requirement. 3D printers can create complex shapes that require no further assembly. Everything ready. No, you don't have to do any assembly. The full product is ready. The full prototype is ready. Conventional production techniques might require the same item to be made in multiple parts, and then you come to the final shape. That's the advantage of using a 3D printer. So 3D printing offers convenience, saves time, saves money as well because it's quicker. It is, however, necessary to apply engineering skill in the creation of objects using 3D printing. An engineer will be needed to use a 3D printer properly because the design will have to be so very precise. For example, a complex shape might require a temporary support to be incorporated into the design. If you're making a complex shape, maybe you have to create a rod which supports that shape, which is temporary. After everything is made, you just remove the rod. Once the object has been printed, it will have sufficient strength on all sides, so support can be easily removed. Now see, the ability to produce complex shapes for your printer is an important value driver. So it also suggests that this is likely a critical success factor for Kwirtmak, which means if your printer is not able to provide an object to its specific requirement quickly, saving time conveniently with the material that has been put in, then why will they go with a 3D printer? They'll go with traditional manufacturing methods or maybe a competitor's 3D printer. So to do well in this market, my printer has to be very, very accurate, reliable, capable with the material. So these are critical success factors which my business will have to do well on, which I am understanding because we are going through the pre-scene in so much detail, and this relates to my E3 syllabus. So in your topic list, you note down critical success factors, comma, KPIs, E3 syllabus. Now, the need for engineering skill and temporary design supports highlights execution risk. There is always a chance of something going wrong. Even where the printer is capable, poor design judgment could lead to failed prints, wasted material. So, the actual engineering skill, the person who uses your printer will also have to have that skill. Printer can be good, but if the input is only not good, then the output will definitely not be good. Now we have types of printers. Now if you just go back into what we have been doing, you'll see that we started with an intro for Kwirtmak. We started with what this industry is, what 3D printers are, what the design stage is. You have so much now ready for you just in these first 10 pages that we have done together. As we go deeper on, your list of topics will strengthen, your list of risks will strengthen. So you are understanding the company, you are understanding important topics, all of which are going to be key when we actually go to mock question writing. Because within mocks, they will reference that, okay, this is happening in the 3D printer industry, for example. We are expanding into this, expanding into that. If you don't know your market, your company, your pre-scene, we cannot teach you how to write an answer because you won't have any ideas. We can tell you how to save time, which we will. So my course gives you the best material, the best direction, the best instruction, the best support to the best of our abilities. And if you reciprocate that from your end, you will 100% be able to move towards the exam in a confident way. The starting point though is understanding our company. And this will be a game changer when we go to mocks. This in-depth pre-scene will be a game changer when we go to mocks because you'll have so many ideas ready to go. Now, types of printers. Remember, we are still doing industry background. The background of the 3D printing industry is what we are doing, and they've given a lot of information about this because naturally this is a very specific industry. So first type of printer is called an extrusion printer. Now they are not going to ask you in the exam to explain what different kinds of printers are, obviously. They've given this information because they might say that, okay, Kwirtmak makes extrusion printers which we are now stopping and we are starting with a new product line, for example. So you should actually know that, okay, this is what an extrusion printer used to do, just in brief. And okay, this new product line has this particular advantage, or our extrusion printers are being modified. So you should be able to make logic of that reference, and that is why we are going through this stuff. So one of the most recognizable 3D printing technologies is extrusion. It builds objects using plastic filament that is loaded into printer spools. So this uses plastic filament that is loaded into the spool of material. How does it work? The filament is fed into an extrusion head which melts the plastic and deposits it precisely onto the surface. So plastic is gathered, it gets heated, and that heated plastic is then set into the actual product you are trying to make layer by layer by layer. Each layer keeps hardening and bonding to the one beneath it. You can see this diagram over here. I'll just zoom in a little bit. You can see plastic, filament, it's heated, and then it's set into the actual product shape that you want it to be. Just have an image of how extrusion works. So what we have done over here, we've taken the actual CIMA pre-seen stuff and then we have presented it better for you so that you can make sense of this technical terms and words which they're using. So what about the overhanging sections? Sometimes they are needed to make your product stronger, which can be removed, right? We learned that. Some parts of an object may stick out or overhang. To handle this, temporary support structures are added during the printing to hold these sections. Once done, these supports are removed. Some printers make this even easier by using water-soluble material for the supports. You put the object into water, that support dissolves away. So temporary support structures can be printed with the object or new technologies, water-soluble material. So within extrusion as well, there are new innovations which are happening up. Now over here, this example was of this diagram was of a single extrusion head, a single head. So single head using or rather used to set the plastic filament layer by layer. Some extrusion printers come with multiple heads. So not one head. The plastic filament is going to 2 or 3 heads and they are all making the product together. This is particularly useful for printing supports in dissolvable material while the main object is printed in the standard plastic. So maybe one head is printing the support, one head is printing the actual object. So if you want different material also to different heads, you can use multiple extrusion heads as well. So this is an extrusion printer let's say analysis which they are giving. Now see, a lot of mention so far has been about plastic as a material that we are using. So okay, plastic is cheap, moldable, easily available. So traditionally it has been used. But as we move forward, and especially within this case study scenario, and with your May 2026 onwards study updates, sustainability has become an ever so important theme for this exam. Sustainability is going to be tested within this exam, and there are a lot of sustainability related ICANN statement blueprint changes as well within the first 2 core areas. So can we continue using plastic, or should we, or as a company that makes 3D printers which utilizes different materials, can we come up with a printer using the same process, let's say the extrusion process, but instead of plastic, maybe a sustainable material is used? Maybe, okay, you use plastic, but we have a, let's say, or essentially a material is developed which can replace plastic, so sustainability becomes better. So overall, we need to think about the sustainability of our business, the sustainability of the entire ecosystem that we are part of, because it will have an effect on my company's green credentials. So sustainability is a big concept within your E3 syllabus, within your F3 syllabus related to integrated reporting. That is why I am bringing it up for you over here so that you start thinking of this. Now, these printers can be relatively small in size and are capable of producing reasonable quality objects. Now, the fact that these printers are small and produce reasonable quality suggests extrusion may be suited to some market segments better than others. So you need to understand which printer can be sold to which market segment as Kwirtmak. This links to choosing the right strategic position in the market, because you want to sell an extrusion printer to a person who's making or rather who wants reasonable quality objects and is looking for a budget 3D printer. That's what you want to sell the extrusion printer to. Second, we have stereolithography, a 3D printing process that uses liquid resin that hardens instantly when hit by a laser beam. So this is liquid resin. The laser beam is hitting the resin and setting your product. So you can see the image over here and how it changes. There's a motorized platform. The tank contains resin. The laser beam is actually designing your product. It's actually making it layer by layer by layer. As soon as the laser beam hits the liquid resin, it starts to harden. So the machine has three key components: the laser, the tank, and the motorized platform, which moves up and down in precise steps to decide the depth of the product, the size of the product, and all of that. How does it print? The platform is placed just below the surface of the liquid resin. The laser beam moves over specific areas, hardening the resin. This creates layer 1. The platform lowers by one tiny increment, leaving layer 1 just below the surface, and then laser 2, then laser 3. So the platform keeps changing and your layer by layer by layer keeps creating. You can see how technologically advanced this is. So overhanging sections may require temporary support structures. Again, over here, you can see this kind of product which is being made. For it to remain stable, you might need supports as well. So once printed, objects may also need exposure to bright light to fully harden the resin. Overall, this is considered as the most accurate 3D printing process available. There is a similar 3D printing process called digital light processing, which uses a more conventional light source that is directed using a lens and a mirror instead of a laser. So instead of a laser, within the same process, if you use a lens or a mirror to focus the light and create your project, it's called digital light processing. So the second type of printer is stereolithography printers. I want you to not know or learn the entire process. I have explained it for you, but now just try to remember the diagrams. So extrusion, okay, what was the picture like? Just have that in your mind. Extrusion head, setting the product. Stereolithography, okay, resin, laser, just have that in your mind. Over here, you will see that stereolithography appears to offer very high accuracy. So this is linking to my suitability, feasibility, acceptability for any project. Because we need to make sure that the right printing technology goes to the right customer. It should be suitable for the right customer when I'm offering it as a new project, as a new product. So whenever you are going for a new project, SFA is generally used. So okay, if I'm expanding, we look at suitability, feasibility, acceptability from your E3 syllabus. But also when you are supporting decisions on which printer is better for which customer, SFA can be used internally as well. So if a customer wants high accuracy, wants a very cutting edge technology, then definitely stereolithography can be suggested. Now this process, a process this precise, is likely to need strong process controls, technical oversight, and quality assurance. So when you as a company are making this printer, you will need very strong process testing internally before you even give it to your customer. Because when you give it to the customer, it's a final product. So your internal controls, the control environment within your company will have to be very strong, P3 syllabus. Because if your internal controls for manufacturing are not set well, if your technical oversight, if your quality is not set well within the manufacturing process itself, it will all trickle down and essentially cost you customers. Next, we have laser melting printers. Number 3. A 3D printing process that uses powdered materials instead of liquid resin or plastic filament. So resin is not used, plastic is not used, powdered materials are used. Think sustainability. It melts and fuses the powder together layer by layer using a laser. So this, you see, printers are getting more and more advanced. We started with basic extrusion, stereolithography. Now we are going to laser, where powders are used and these are fused together layer by layer. So this machine has two chambers. A build chamber where the object is constructed, like you can see in the image, and a powder chamber where the raw material is stored. Both chambers have platforms that can be raised or lowered. So powder chamber, when you're thinking laser melting, think two chambers, powder chamber and building chamber. So the build chamber starts at the top of its tank. The piston in the powder chamber raises slightly and a roller pushes a thin, even layer of powder across the build platform, like you can see in the image here. The powder is raised, the roller rolls it into the building platform, and that building platform again keeps changing its height. The laser is directed over the correct areas, melting and fusing the powder to create a first solid layer. So when the powder comes, the laser melts this powder and it becomes your first layer. This way, the powder platform raises slightly again and your layer by layer is created. Once printing is done, the material in the build tank is left to cool because this is fused together, so it needs to cool. The object is then removed from the surrounding unused powder and any remaining powder is simply brushed away. So unlike stereolithography (SL) or extrusion printing, laser melting does not need any support structures because this is already very solid. This is because the unused powder surrounding the object naturally fills any empty spaces. Laser melting works with both plastic and metal materials, making it more versatile than some other methods. Now, objects produced by laser melting tend to be stronger. However, they are not always as accurate and may have a rougher finish. So which type of printer goes to which kind of customer category, that's important for you to understand. If you need a strong product but you are okay with a little specifications going here and there, a rough finish, you go with your laser melting. So laser melting appears better suited where customers value strength. You need to understand your customer. So all of this is again very closely linking to customer analysis, external market analysis, because if I know the external market well, only then I can serve my customer better. What do customers want? What are they looking for? Need to understand the customer as well. Then we have multi-jet. This is the fourth type of printer we are considering. Again, just a quick go through extrusion, your extrusion head, I'm picturing that diagram. Stereolithography, I'm picturing laser, resin, then your laser with laser melting with two tanks, picturing that powder being used. And the fourth one, multi-jet, a 3D printing process that comes in two forms: binder jetting and material jetting. We will focus on binder jetting. So how is it similar to laser melting? Like laser melting, binder jetting also uses powder spread evenly and compressed on the building platform. The key difference is how the powder is fused together. In that method, the powder was fused together using a laser. That's why it was called laser printing. This is called multi-jet. So instead of laser, binder jetting uses a print head very similar to a standard inkjet printer. Your standard printer, you put in the paper and prints the material, that sprays precise quantities of a liquid binder onto the powder. So okay, same process, powder is coming up, but the print head sprays liquid binder onto the powder. The binder reacts with the powder to create a solid layer. So essentially every method is creating solid layer by layer by layer, and that's called 3D printing. The print head moves with great precision in 2 dimensions to reach any part of your building platform. One standout feature of binder jetting is that the binder comes in different colors and it can be mixed. So multicolored objects can be created. So what is your multi-jet? Same process. There is just a inkjet print head which sprays out the liquid ink. This liquid ink makes the powder solid, and the difference is that it can be multicolored. In terms of material, binder jetting supports a wide range including ceramics, making it more versatile. No support structures are needed over here. The objects produced by binder jetting are not as strong as those made using laser melting, which is an important trade-off, but you get wider range of materials, you get different colorful objects. So if that's your need, you go with multi-jet. So again, the comparison with laser melting shows that different 3D printing methods compete on different strengths. What are your competitors offering? What is the industry offering? What do customers actually want? That is an important analysis for you to make as Kwirtmak. Now, I want to make an overview after considering the different types of printers. You consider so many different types of printers, right? But the range of 3D printing technologies, 4 which we considered, suggests Kwirtmak may need ongoing investment decisions about which printer types, materials, technical capabilities to develop or support. Because new technologies are coming up. So how are we going to, take on these technologies if we don't have ready finance, if we don't have good cash management, if we don't make good investment decisions? This is your F3 syllabus. So as a quoted company, you will have many choices whether to use your dividend. When we go later on, we'll see what the financial is, for the financials are for my company. How much dividend are we paying? We'll talk about different dividend policies. See, this is just pretty much an intro that we are doing. Deeper on, you will have very straightforward links to your company available when we actually start analyzing Kwirtmak. Up until now, we made so many relations and so many themes and so many ideas just doing the intro. And one of those ideas is also the need for finance, the need for investment, F3 syllabus. Now, this whole section shows that the 3D printing industry is driven by rapid technological change. Different production methods, different materials, different trade-offs. So Kwirtmak will need to respond to these changes continuously, which makes change management, being innovative, being ready to change, being ready to be flexible, very important within this market, because technology is going to be a driver of change for this market, for this industry. Now, the existence of several competing technologies, these different kind of printers with different strengths, suggests that this industry is still developing. So if you look at the industry life cycle, it will be one which is still, I will say, not 100% conventional. It's still considered as growing based on innovation, based on experimentation. So there is going to be growth opportunities within this market because of the current industry life cycle that we are in. Different life cycle stages, E3 syllabus. Now again, sustainability is a major theme. So 3D printing may have sustainability relevance because it can reduce waste, unnecessary assembly, remove your inefficiencies. Yes, but the different materials that we use, like resin, powders, plastic, may also raise environmental and CSR issues. So corporate social responsibility, P3 syllabus, sustainability, P3 syllabus, integrated reporting, F3 syllabus, become very important. Scenario planning is mentioned here, but I'm going to cover scenario planning with another supplementary reading section later on. It's a favorite exam topic, so I want to cover it with a very relevant discussion which is coming up, but just I mentioned it over here. So we did the marathon on type of printers. We are now on type of materials. Plastics are often used in powdered form in laser melting printers or in filament form for extrusion. Nylon, under plastic itself there are different kinds. So like nylon can be used in both forms, creating strong and flexible objects. Powdered nylon is also used, which can be combined with powdered aluminium to create alumide, which makes it possible to create objects that are stiff and heat resistant. Type of requirement will decide the type of printer and the type of material also. ABS is a very strong plastic that can be used as filament form in extrusion printers. The PLA is a biodegradable plastic that can be supplied in resin form for use in your stereolithography and your digital or your direct printers and in a filament form for extrusion. So plastics as well, there are different kinds, plus there is a biodegradable kind as well. So the sustainability aspect we always want to keep in our mind. Same way, there are several metals which can be used: aluminium, cobalt, stainless steel, gold, silver, titanium. The metals differ in terms of their characteristics and applications. Ceramic materials can be obtained in different formats, making it possible to use them in extrusion, binder jetting, laser melting, any process. Ceramic objects must be fired in the same manner as any other ceramic item after printing so that they become strong. So again, different types of materials can be used with different type of printers. It all depends on your output. But we want to keep in mind sustainability when it comes to inputs. So the wide range of materials from plastic to metals and ceramics such as scope of diversification across different customer applications, across different industries, developing new industrial uses for your printer. Right now, let's say you're serving a certain industry. If a new industry altogether you start or you identify or you diversify into, that's diversification, right? Again, the mention of PLA as a biodegradable plastic creates a direct link to your corporate social responsibility, to your triple bottom line, to your sustainability reporting. Now, supporting plastics, metals, ceramics is likely to require different equipment, expertise, post-processing capabilities. So essentially all of this material also is going to require finance. As we go deeper into the pre-scene, we'll understand that yes, we make the printers and we also sell the material that is used within these printers. So stocking up on this material, suggesting the right material, all of this will need finance. So finance related decision making in your F3 syllabus becomes very important. As we move later on, we are going to give you specifics as well. For example, under currency risk, this is where external hedging techniques can be used. For example, I'm saying internal controls. These are the type of internal controls. But when the time is right, right now we are only doing an industry go through industry background. So I'm pointing out to you what's important at this stage. There are a lot of benefits of 3D printing. With the rapid development of prototypes, thereby 3D printing can help with rapid development of prototypes, speeding up research and development of projects. The alternative is very time consuming, very expensive, so 3D printers are being used more and more. 3D printing offers other benefits as well, such as the product being customized to the customer's exact particular requirement. It can also be flexible. For example, laser melting, binder jetting can make multiple objects simultaneously in the same development time. So quicker, and products produce complex shapes that are impossible in conventional designs because sometimes a machine is better than a human in terms of detailing. So 3D printing has a lot of advantages. These are the advantages which you need to market around. These are the advantages which you need to speak around because this is your market. Remember that. Now, 3D printing can result in sustainable production methods as well. Products and components can be printed locally, reducing the need for transportation. Also, better materials, less waste. So 3D printing in itself can be promoted as a sustainable production method, not only for your prototypes, But if you are able to deliver it in a cost effective way, it can be used as a normal production method as well. Now, the benefits described here suggest Kwirtmak should set clear strategic objectives. Remember, critical success factor. You should be able to focus on reliability, quick production, better production, sustainable production. All of this links to critical success factors and financial, non-financial indicators which you want to understand for your business, so that you are able to promote it in the right way. And after all of this discussion, finally we are starting to analyze Kwirtmak. Finally, we have started to analyze the company's details, what the actual company does. Finally, we have arrived at that. Up until now was only an industry overview background which we were doing, and where we helped you solidify your lists, understanding of this industry, these technical terms that they gave us, that we have aimed to make it simple for you in this analysis up until now. So that brings me to the end of pre-scene part 1. This is only part 1. Part 2 is going to be about our company. Part 3 is going to take this one step further, and we'll do a full financial analysis for you. So everything is coming for you step by step by step, but I first urge you to be very comfortable and consolidated on the topic list for part 1, on the information for part 1 and the industry analysis. Just because part 2 is available, we don't start with it. We carefully go through part number 1. Once we have understood it, then we'll move to part 2. That's part 1 done. So we are on to part 2 of our pre-scene analysis now. Within part 1, we introduced the company for you, we introduced the background of the company for you, we introduced the industry of the company for you, and we pointed out some E, P and F important topics which I hope you are creating a list for. Plus, I hope you are creating a risks list as well, both of which are going to be important as we move deeper into the pre-scene. So now, before I start with part 2, please make very sure that you are comfortable with part 1 and the industry analysis. Then you can start with part 2. It will be a better experience for you. So now, part 2 is all about the company, and part 3 is going to be the financials of the company. But first, we are dealing with about the company. So first thing they've told us is that Kwirtmak was founded in 1992. Initially, it manufactured small 3D extrusion printers that were popular with small commercial design workshops. So it started as a small company, gradually expanded, and then it got quoted on the stock exchange in 2004. The company's product range has expanded over time. So very clearly they're telling us that, okay, we are a company which has been in the market for a very long time, which means you would have garnered a set of loyal customers, a set of goodwill, which is important to remember, because no company can, survive in a market for 32, 33, 34 years like us if you are not strong, if people are not liking your products, if you are not able to adopt. So that's one part of the culture of our company. And our product range has also expanded, which means from the very beginning, expansion in product range is something that the company is willing to accept. So it continues to build 3D extrusion printers, but also makes stereolithography, digital light processing, laser melting and material jetting printers. Now all of this becomes important for you to know, because now you know, because of my analysis in part 1, what each of these printers do. They have different technologies, different inputs, different sustainability aspects. So we deal with all of these different products they've told us. Now Kwirtmak appears to compete through differentiation rather than cost leadership, because see, we always make our printers to customers' specifications. So we are trying to make it as let's say as customer friendly, as customer specific, as pickable, choosable upon the customer's requirement, and all of this requires time and effort. So we are rather following a differentiation strategy rather than being the lowest cost printer out there. Kwirtmak specializes in printers for commercial customers, including machines that can create relatively large objects from plastic, metal, or ceramics. We already know variety of inputs go into a printer. The company's largest extrusion printer can create objects with a build volume of up to 1 meter cube. Kwirtmak supplies materials for use in its printers as well. So customers are not required to purchase those materials, but many choose to do so because it's compatible and known to work best. So now see, this is extension of my business model which we have already done. Earlier we used to make printers only. Then we started to supply the materials which are used within these printers, like different plastics, metals, ceramics. So our business model expanded. This was a new revenue stream which we found. So naturally, again, the culture of the business is one which is open to diversification. So your diversification, ways of diversification, ideas of diversification from E3 become important over here. Now, Kwirtmak's customers are from a wide range of industrial backgrounds. We have aerospace customers, which use our printers to create spare parts at major airports to quickly fix the aircrafts rather than waiting for inventory, rather than flying from one place to another. So we are adding value by helping these companies. Then we have automotive companies as our customers, which use our printers to manufacture switches and dashboards. Consumer electronic companies use our printers for rapid creation of prototypes. And jewelry, the manufacture of individual pieces in complicated shapes, which is impossible to create using traditional jewelry techniques. So these might be bespoke items that can be designed using 3D CAD. So especially jewelry makers as well use my printers because CAD enables them to make very specific designs, and the printer will print those specific designs then. So essentially you see so many people we are going to be dealing with, such a wide range of customers. Under each of these groups there will be different individual customers as well. So this is managing stakeholder relationships, which will be very important for us because these are our customers. They will have different needs, different power, different interest. So managing the relationship with these stakeholders, E3 syllabus becomes important. Also very important for us is to always be aware of my resources, of my core competencies. What am I best at? What are my core resources? That is a very important consideration for Kwirtmak, and for that a resource audit could be used. Let's say they can say, okay, we are expanding into creating our own 3D or own CAD software, for example. But for this, you will naturally need to know what your resources are. So we are convening a resource audit. So you need to know what a resource audit is. Resource audit is where you look inside, find what are your best resources. Based on the resources, what are your core competencies, what are you best at, and according to that you make your decision. So your concept of core competencies and resource audit becomes important this way. Kwirtmak supplies a wide range of customers covering many different industries. The company has a strong reputation for the provision of technical advice, ensuring that customers' requirements are met in terms of several key criteria. So we always have a wide variety of customers, and we have a reputation to provide the right advice that, okay, this customer, you go with this kind of printer based on the different criteria. So what are the criteria? Number one is cost. Now 3D printers, as we already know because of our industry analysis, they're quite expensive to purchase and to operate. They come at a range of different price points depending on the technology of the printer. So depending on the cost, we need to advise to our customers that okay, this printer will be good for you. Speed. The time taken to create a particular item will depend on the printer's technology. So if the customer wants quick, fast product output, accordingly printer will be suggested. Properties of the output. The customer should probably focus on the properties of the object that they wish to create before considering factors such as cost and speed. What properties you want, how accurate you want your product to be. An engine part, for example, might have to be accurate to within a tiny fraction of a millimeter, while an ornament could be perfectly acceptable even if it is created to a much wider tolerance. There's a slight difference from the design to the actual printer, it's okay in a jewelry design, but for an engine part or for a car manufacturer or a plane manufacturer or anything related to aviation, the accuracy matters. So first, rather than cost or speed, it is being said that okay, focus on the accuracy that you need because that will decide the printer. Focus on the finish that you need, the type of finish that you need, because different printers take in different inputs and different finishes are produced. If you want a color scheme, multiple colors, smooth surface, rough surface, what do you want? Same way, take into account the strength. So different combinations of printer and material will yield different strengths of the object. Some will require stronger, some will require not robust. So it will depend on the actual strength. And then the size. Printers vary in terms of the size of their production platforms, which is going to depend on the size of the objects that they can create. So first, figure out the accuracy they need, the finish they need, the strength they need, the size they need. Then you can figure out the cost and the speed. But first, all of this technical advice will have to be provided to my customer to make sure that okay, my customer is going to get the right printer. See, customers are going to be from different industries. Again, managing that relationship, servicing that relationship becomes very important. And the criteria listed here naturally divides into financial indicators, non-financial indicators. So we ask ourselves whether we are using the right mix of indicators to choose the best print or choose the best printer for my customers. This gives Kwirtmak's value drivers, if you look at it. Because the main value drivers in Kwirtmak's market are these features which have been listed for you. If you come up with a printer that is highly accurate, good finish, good strength, good size, new kinds of markets could open up for you. So to understand the need of a customer, it becomes very important for us to understand how customers decide which printer is going to be needed. So the accuracy is important, finish is important, strength is important, size is important. So when we are looking at expansion, we will need to consider these as key value drivers. Now, one major theme which I am going to test you on as well, and which I'm seeing coming up as well, is the use case of 3D printers in the health application setting. Because 3D printers are now coming up with, or rather there are 3D printers that come up with certain parts of your let's say operations, or certain part of your body as a change can also be created by 3D printers. Medical devices, certain medical devices which you may need can also be created by 3D printers. So when you are looking at expansion, it becomes very important to know how your customers are deciding which product is going to be used by them. It could be cost, speed, accuracy, finish, strength, size, because these become my major value drivers now. So while going through the pre-scene, we are also discussing themes which are very, very possible to come up for Kwirtmak. Plus we are understanding the company, plus we are coming up with our important E3, P3 and F3 topic list. So this journey is a very fruitful one if you follow on with me. Now, since customers depend on Kwirtmak's advice on critical output characteristics, the company needs strong internal controls over technical specification, product recommendation, quality assurance. So it becomes very important for us to set a good quality or have a good quality internal control system, because if we do not have this strong internal control system, then there will be quality issues, software issues, financial reporting issues, supplier issues, customer issues, suggestion to customer issues. All of these can arise. So your internal controls are a major part of your blueprint area E. Types of internal controls, what are internal control systems like, the model which we can use to support internal controls like the COSO model, the COSO framework, become important for me to study, because internal controls are going to be very important for the business to make sure quality is maintained throughout. So the company is going to need effective controls over areas such as technical specifications, qualities, updates, inventory, treasury. So we can, lead customer disruption, let's say, and avoid reputational damage. Why? Because if you are giving quality, if your technicality is solid, if your technical specifications are very well internally controlled, and if you then look to expand, like I said, medical devices, for example, then you already have a good platform which you can expand upon, and you can use 3D printers for a variety of uses. So Kwirtmak's range of products enables it to meet most customer requirements in terms of speed and property of output criteria. The prices of Kwirtmak's printers and materials tend to reflect the high quality of its products. So very clearly we already know that it's a differentiation strategy which we are following, because we are often, in very deep conversations with the customer, we have technical specificity, we are able to provide high quality of products. So all of this will lead to differentiation in the price as well, which will be higher than that of our competitors. More advanced and capable printers tend to have higher selling prices in recognition to the superior components and better build quality that they provide. Kwirtmak's largest factory is in Enland, alongside its head office in the outskirts of capital city. The company has 3 other factories in a different country. So all 3 factories, different country. Largest factory, Enland. Total of 4 factories, but the company sells to a global market. So it's a global market which we are selling to. Now already we know, and rather when we go deeper into the pre-scene, we will further be told that our revenue at Kwirtmak has declined when compared to the last year. So there is more possibility of a scenario, again scenario I am discussing, which can come up in the exam, or the unseen in the exam can be related to further growth because of let's say industry slowdown or uneven demand. Certain segments have high demand, certain 3D printer requirements have high demand, certain 3D printer requirements have no demand. For example, now nobody is using 3D printers for example, I'm saying they can create a scenario saying now nobody, or rather in automotive industry, 3D printer usage is going down. More 3D printers are being used in aerospace, defense. So this is an expansion opportunity that we see, and that is why a new factory is being setting up in India, for example. For this factory, you will then, variety of questions can be raised, like finance, like how should we finance, what should we cut our dividends, what should be, whether debt, equity, should we take a loan, then the interest on the loan should be fixed or floating. All of this F3 syllabus becomes very, very realistic because of the international growth perspective that we spoke of. Now again, we are high quality, high focus. We already know this. The fact that Kwirtmak's largest factory and head office are in Enland, A developed country makes Porter's diamond relevant because we are a developed country, which is inland. Inland will have a lot of advantages such as skilled workforce, infrastructure, supplier access, supportive business environment. All of this is important for us to be aware of when I'm setting up my new factory. Because I want to be in an environment when I'm supported, where the market is good, where infrastructure is good, suppliers, linkages are good. So when I go to expansion, I want to keep the Porter's diamond in mind as to why certain countries are better for certain industries. For example, if you set up a factory in China, you're going to have support because the 3D printing market in China is booming, for example. So keeping the Porter's diamond and its use in mind for Kwirtmak also becomes important when we expand. And because we are speaking about so much expansion and already we are in 4 countries, 3 factories, different parts of the world, and 1 factory in inland, a whole bunch of risks such as economic risk, political risk, because different countries have different economics, different political issues, all of which you'll have to deal with. It also leads to your currency risk, which is a very favorite exam question. Your currency risk, because you are a global company, you'll be trading in different currencies. So currency risk management becomes a very, very, very important F3 topic. There's a full chapter on this. It is very important to know the different currency hedging techniques, internal hedging, external hedging, why it's done. Just knowing the techniques in your own words will help you. And like I already said, just the scenario of international growth is leaving us to so many possibilities. One of them is finance, sources of finance, F3 syllabus. Now see, I already pointed out resource audit and core competencies for you and why it's important to us earlier. So I won't go into too much detail over here. I've still put it up for you to quickly read through. But essentially, I've already covered this. So you see, when we are going through Kwirtmak's data, a lot of important revelations are coming to my mind. Plus, I am dealing with a whole bunch of scenarios which can also come up. Plus, I'm creating my topic list. Plus, I'm creating my risks list as well as an active exercise. Now, after this, we have our annual report which they have given. So they say that one part of our annual report includes mission, vision, and our values. Now this is a very important aspect for me to speak about because students often overlook this. Okay, this has been given, this is like generic information. That is not the case. This has been given to you again for 2 major reasons. Number 1, to know what your company values, what your company's direction is. And number 2, use this within your answers. See, be very clear. All of this pre-scene analysis, all of this pre-scene go through which we are doing is being done for you to understand your company, for you to understand key E, P and F pillars, but also giving you great ideas which you can take with you and use it within the mock questions when the time comes. So when you are writing anything in the exam or even in my mock questions, you can say that, okay, it's very important, if you're talking about expansion, you can say that, okay, it's very important for us to consider accuracy, cost, specificity, the use of materials. All of these are very important considerations. When you quote the pre-scene within your answers, it clearly showcases that you are embedded within this company. And that's what a senior finance manager does. Knows his company inside and out. That is what I aim for you to take away from this pre-scene. That use this information when the time comes. Same way, when you're expanding, when you're doing any kind of operations discussion, you can say that our values are to create wealth and success. So this sits with my value. My mission is this. So okay, this makes sense. Our vision is this. If you just quote these things within your answers, it makes a lot of value and gives you free integration marks. So please make sure that you keep going through the pre-scene multiple times. And I always say this, you should have gone through the pre-scene 7, 8, 10 times before the date of your exam. 2 times you can watch the entire videos, but after that we have given you a PDF as well, which you can access, which you can keep with you, annotate, highlight, underline, make it personal, but keep reading it. Because if you try to learn things, there is just too much to learn and you will not be successful. Rather, try to go through things multiple times. So like your favorite movie, like your favorite book, you'll start to remember the things automatically and you'll be able to naturally use them. But for that, you'll have to spend time with the pre-scene. So what is my mission? See, mission is your reason for being. The mission is, why does the company exist? So the company exists to transform its customers through innovation in design and production. One very clear indication over here is we are an innovative company, which we know from before, but this is something you must stay true to. So you're writing anything about innovation, say that our mission supports innovation, so it's important that we go ahead with this project, for example. Now over here it says innovation in design and production. Another theme which I'm getting over here, which is very common within this market, is the shift from prototyping to true production. See, right now 3D printers are mainly used for prototyping. But one of the biggest themes which can be tested, which an unseen can come upon, is becoming a solid production method. So this creates a strategic issue. Can Kwirtmak prove its printers are suitable, feasible, acceptable for industrial scale manufacturing, or it's just for prototypes? So this becomes an important aspect for us to consider when we are developing any new products, and maybe a theme can come up on this in the exam as well around your SFA analysis. Same with vision. So Kwirtmak's vision is to be the leading provider of additive manufacturing solutions across industries to be achieved in a sustainable manner. 2 things. Across industries, which means increase your usages, go into medical, go into all different kinds of fields possible, and sustainability. So anything that you do as a business will have to be across industries, improving your industrial reach, plus doing it in a sustainable manner. You cannot suggest anything unsustainable, because this will go against your vision then. Then our values. You always have to stay true to your values. And because sustainability has been mentioned over here, naturally my concepts of corporate social responsibility, sustainability come to mind. E3. Now, Kwirtmak creates wealth and success. Kwirtmak's innovations are driven by customer need. So innovative. Over delivers on promises. So we try to go one up, always going ahead. Trusts its staff. And staff are team players. All of these are my values. We need to stay true to these values to make sure the business moves ahead, because so far in the 35 odd years that the business has been in the market, it has been following this mission, following this vision, following these values, and the business has been successful. So now I'm getting some ideas to my mind and some concepts which are very, very famously tested within the exam again and again and again. Now, stress testing is highly relevant to Kwirtmak because it operates in a very complex market. The company could be tested on what happens if there's a sharp fall in demand. Scenario can come up, right? Let's say there's an inflation issue. Regulations are tightened. So, a process like stress testing or scenario planning, they can give you different scenarios that, okay, this has occurred, this has occurred, this has occurred, or maybe this is occurring. What can be the different scenarios, or how can we use scenario planning to help us? So the concept of scenario planning from your E3, P3, it comes within both syllabus areas, becomes very, very important and a favorite exam question as well. different scenarios and dealing with those scenarios. Same way, so far we have been continuously talking about expansion. The best expansion tool, the best tool to give you direction for strategic growth is the Ansof's matrix. So how can we use the Ansof's matrix to develop new strategies, new directions is an important consideration, E3 syllabus. So while I'm going through the topics, we also try to highlight key areas which you can use within your answers. Plus, we are always adding to our topic list. Also coming up is my business ecosystem changes. Now, strategic implications are highly relevant because changes in the market could have an effect on our model. Earlier also this happened. We first used to sell only printers, then we started selling material. Same way, if customers become more price sensitive, Kwirtmak's premium differentiation strategy may come into question and you might start producing another theme. Let's say we are considering now producing cheap, not cheap quality, but cheap priced printers, keeping the best possible quality and costs under control under a new brand name. That can come up, right? If the market is changing. So if the business is changing, if the ecosystem is changing, Kwirtmak will have to be flexible to notice and to forecast and to understand where the gap is between in the market so that I can attack that gap. And any new thing that you want to do brings about investment decisions. So financing decisions, dividend decisions, investment decisions become very important from your F3 syllabus. We'll talk more about dividends later on within the financial analysis when we get there, but right now it's relevant, so I always want to discuss it. Next section we are going to is our board of directors. Now, very important to know my board of directors because they are the people who are running the company. They are the people who are giving the company direction. So it's very important to know the people who are going to give it direction. First, we are doing executive directors. Now, what are executives? Non-executive directors, their duties, their roles is your P3 syllabus, which you must be clear about the role of different types of directors. First, we'll start with David Wallace, Chief Executive Officer. The CEO is the person who generally runs the day-to-day decisions of the company. So Dr. David is a mechanical engineer with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in engineering from the University of Central City. So highly qualified. Naturally, a person who is highly qualified leading the day-to-day decisions for a company that's based on innovation, technology, mechanics is a good sign, right? He's also completed a PhD, writing a thesis on the precision control of mechanical device. It's very important that my printers are precise. All of this knowledge is going to help him make the right direction and decision for my 3D printers. He joined Kwirtmak after completing his PhD and started in research and development, several positions and worked his way up. Now, I have done some analysis over here and given you the strengths. So David has very strong technological knowledge and balance. We already spoke about that because he's worked his way up from the bottom, research and development, different positions, then became the CEO. He knows what the business's workings are and he has the technical capability. Now again, why is this important? When we go to the pre-scene, when you're writing your mocks or even in the exam, anything related to precision, technical expertise, you can quote David's name. You can say that, okay, let's take the opinion of David Wallace as well. Or we have a CEO who is an expert at this who we can consider over here as well. You know, when you include stuff like this within your answer, it adds a lot of value to your answer. Value showcasing the examiner that this person has studied the pre-scene. Now, his technical and internal background may help him make sound decisions about products, investment, operational priorities. The weakness is that he has been completely internally developed and strong technical orientation. This may mean he has less obvious exposure to broader commercial, financial, or international issues which our company is going to face. There's a risk that internally promoted CEOs may be less likely to change already established way of doing things because they have always looked at it from that lens. So this is a possible weakness or area of concern which we need to consider. Next, we have Christina, who is the operations director. Now, Christina has a degree in chemical engineering. After graduation, she joined a company in the oil industry where she held a number of roles in production. So she has that operations background, quality control background. She has that process discipline as well because she's held number of roles in production. Her engineering background is going to be very important for us for our manufacturing efficiency. And her previous role as head of quality showcases the importance of quality, continuous improvement within our operations as well. She is highly qualified as an operations director, and I feel the right person to lead the company. Again, her background appears heavily focused on operations and production, so she may have less exposure to broad strategic, customer facing, digital transformation issues because she has always been in operations and operations only. Next, we have Dr. Saeed, Chief Technical Officer. Remember, technicality, specifications, precision, accuracy, very important for my business. And it further showcases that it's very important for us because we have a technical officer and a CEO, both who have engineering degrees and strong background. So his PhD thesis focused on behavior of molten plastics under extrusion. So to better my extrusion printing process, his knowledge would have been used because we have extrusion printers. After completing his PhD, he joined Kwirtmak, worked in production, research development, and became a CTO. Again, internally developed. So as CTO, he is central to decisions involving product design, process technology, technical risk, everything related to innovation, R&D, technology is under his control. So he's going to be an important person in ensuring that new product ideas can actually be delivered efficiently in production. Just coming up with a new printer design but you can't produce it, there's no point of such a printer. So again, a possible concern is that his profile is again very technical with less visible evidence of broader commercial, financial, market facing experience. This could contribute to a board that is somewhat engineering heavy. So a lot of engineers on the board, which focuses on the important sides, yes, but still the commercial side, the globalization side, is one which we need to consider. Next, we have Agatha Paluch, Financial Officer, your boss. Remember, you are Senior Finance Manager. Above you comes the Finance Director or the CFO in this case. Now, Agatha is a professionally qualified accountant. She worked for an electronics manufacturer while studying for her professional exams. And after qualifying, she moved to a larger electronics manufacturer, and she was promoted to the CFO in 2025. So she has worked in different industries. She has finance background, accounting background. She has expertise in electronics manufacturing, accounting. Her progression from chief accountant also indicates strong Kwirtmak's internal finance knowledge. She was only promoted to the board in 2025, so she is generally new to the board level responsibility. She has strong accounting background, control background that has been mentioned, but as a CEO of a global company, they have not mentioned anything about capital markets background, treasury background, currency management background, strategic financial decision background, which could be of a very important consideration for us as a big global company. Next, Ouyang, Marketing Director. Now, Ouyang Ki joined the marketing department of a major manufacturing company straight after school. He has since built a long and successful career in business to business sale. Very important for us because naturally our customers are going to be industrial users, so business to business. He joined the marketing department in 2019 and director in 2022. So he has strong knowledge of customer needs, negotiation, revenue generation. He has that background. A possible concern is that no formal academic or professional qualification is mentioned, like it's been mentioned for our other directors. Also, his background seems to be heavily focused on sales. So it is less clear how much experience he has in wider brand strategy, digital marketing, broader corporate strategy, which is important for a board of directors person. Now, after looking at the executive directors, I want to do an overview. So the executive team has strong technical, operational, financial, commercial expertise overall and is a broadly capable board. These are good corporate governance rules according to the board structure category in corporate governance code P3 syllabus. Several of my directors are internally developed, so they will know the culture of the business, but they will be less willing to change. Let's say types of risks become important over here because, like I said, from the finance background, the finance director has a little bit of a weakness because hasn't managed large let's say multinational companies, treasury functions. So especially strong CEO, strong CTO will help us move in the right direction in terms of innovation, product development, digital disruption, all of which is going to be important for my business. Now that was the executive side. We are going to the non-executive side now. Non-executive directors are very important for a business. Again, their role from P3 becomes important for you to study. First, we have MADA, who is the non-executive chairman. So they're telling you that, okay, you have a CEO, you have a chairman, two different people, part of the board, which showcases good reliance on the corporate governance code because one person is not holding all the power. Two separate is recommended by the corporate governance code. We'll speak more about corporate governance code later on. Now, Mada had a successful career as an administrator in England's government. So she was part of the government. During this time, she involved in drafting several key pieces of business-related legislation and rose to a very senior position. She also serves on the Senate of Capital City University and is a member of the university's audit committee. She joined as non-executive chair in 2024. Highly respected individual, qualified individual, great background, governance background as well. So the person who's going to run the board of directors, which is the chairman, having this kind of stature is very, very important. And she has audit. We already know the importance of internal controls for our business. The audit committee looks at the internal controls, the external audit, all of this. So our chairman has knowledge of this, which is going to be very important for us. So, her background is very relevant to her role as the non-executive chair because the chair should provide leadership. Because of her experience, she'll be able to do that. But her knowledge, expertise, experience seems to be majorly in the public sector. So she may have less direct exposure to private sector, commercial pressures or commercial workings for our business, but still she has that experience and knowledge. Now, very important to keep in mind, I'm going to bring in ethics over here. Favorite exam topic and another exam scenario over here which can come up is, let's say you are now coming up with a new partnership with the England government, which MADA has facilitated for you. MADA already has a background in the England government, so there can be ethical issues of whether MADA helped us get that contract due to some influences. That can be a scenario that they create. So what will be the ethics that will be questioned over here? Integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional behavior, professional competence. Your CIMA code of ethics is very important and highly testable in this exam. I just gave you one way. There are multiple ways they can test you, and we will also test you multiple ways within our mock questions, but just giving you ideas of how it can be tested here. Next we have Dr. Ada, Senior Independent Director. And Dr. Ada has a PhD in economics. She spent most of her career in banking, eventually becoming chief economist of the Inland Mutual Bank. Since retiring from banking, she has served on 3 government advisory committees. So again, economics background, government background, and recently joined the company. So she brings great banking knowledge, economic knowledge. She will know what macroeconomic conditions, financial trends are. This is highly important for us and will support my finance director, who is little bit lacking in this section. So if we are able to, or let's say if we are going for expansion, knowing the economy of that particular country, what are the interest rates, what are the inflation rates, what are their effects on the foreign exchange, what are what are the economic risks we should consider. This all Ada will be able to help you with, and this is a major strength for my business. And all of this links to your F3 topics. IRPT, purchasing power parity theory, interest rate parity theory, their use to determine foreign exchange rates, economic risks, how they can be managed, P3 risk. All of this becomes something that Ada can help with. But you should be able to know that you have these directors in place who can help with this, and you should be able to quote it as well when the time comes. And that is why we are doing such a detailed pre-scene analysis with you. Next we have Professor Amit. Professor Amit had an academic career teaching and conducting research at the University of Newtown before moving to University of Central City's School of Business, where he became head of their Masters of Business Administration degree. He continues to serve as part-time visiting professor and joined only in 2025. So all of our non-executive directors are pretty much new joinees if you look at it. So this could be a governance issue or a theme which they raise. As a non-executive director, his main contribution is likely to be objective oversight, and he already has good background, good business background, so he can help our CEO take the right business decisions as well. Next we have Nina, another independent non-executive director. She founded a successful company specializing in the commercial application of innovative new technologies. So she is the person who has been with the innovation, or rather she is bringing the innovative touch to the board of directors further. Her company became quoted on the Inland Stock Exchange. She sold her shares and stepped back, and she holds several non-executive directorships. She now serves as a non-executive director at Kwirtmak and also chair of the Inland Opera. So she's bringing commercial knowledge, entrepreneurial knowledge, founding knowledge, growing knowledge, listing knowledge, finance knowledge, all of that she will have. She doesn't have any direct evidence of deep manufacturing background, which is what my company is, but she has other strengths. So if I'm overall looking at the board, the Kwirtmak's board appears strong in technical expertise, governance, oversight. The executive team has solid backgrounds in engineering, operations, finance, marketing, while non-executive bring regulation, economics, business education, entrepreneurship, a good mix. The board is somewhat technically weighted and internally developed, especially on the executive side. More of the technical knowledge people are there rather than business people. There is also limited explicit evidence of international experience, digital experience, HR experience, which is very important in today's world. And several board members are also relatively new appointments. which can affect the board cohesion and the experience. Something for us to keep in mind. After that, they've given us the structure of the board. It's a very straightforward structure where they're telling us that, okay, David Wallace sits at the top. He is the chief executive officer. Under him comes the operations director, Christina. She looks at factory operations, software integration, human resource management, health and safety, sustainability. So operations director is pretty much responsible for 5 things, out of which health and safety, sustainability, operations are key for me. Side, technical officer, who looks at research and product development. Okay, fine. Agatha, finance, looks at everything related to finance, financial accounting, management accounting, and treasury. Uyang, marketing, everything related to marketing, like marketing, customer service, public relations. So I do feel that the board is well balanced, yes, but Christina has a hoard of responsibilities which are very important for the business. So the board appears to have a very clear, simple, functional structure in place. Next, they've given us some board committees. Now this, on the outset, many students would not find very important, but I am going to look at it from the corporate governance lens. It becomes very important to be aware of your different rules and regulations for each committee, which is in the P3 syllabus, what each committee's responsibilities are, what it should be, who should be part of the committees. That's part of your P3 syllabus. You should very clearly have revised it. Over here, if you look at the committees, we have all 4, or rather all 3 required committees, which is the audit, remuneration and nomination committee, which is required by the corporate governance code. We also have a risk and CSR committee, which is recommended, showcasing that we have given a lot of importance to risk and CSR at the board level because we have a committee for it. Now within this, they are telling us that each committee has separate memberships. Let's look at each committee one by one. Now the audit committee, or rather before I start with the board committees, let's quickly circle back to how many directors do we have. If we look at the executive side, we have 1 CEO plus 4 executive directors. So total of 5. If you look at the non-executive side, you have 1 chairman plus 3 independent non-executive directors. So we have 4 on the non-executive side and 5 on the executive side. So there is a mismatch in the number of directors. According to the UK Corporate Governance Code, we should have equal number of executives and non-executives to have balance of power on the board of directors. Because in this situation, the executives can automatically come in unison and vote and pass something if they want for the company. So having an equal number of executives and non-executives is recommended. That's one area of the corporate governance code to look at. So now let's look at the audit committee. This has a lot of core area overlaps. D and E specifically deal with corporate governance, and expect 100% some of the other corporate governance question in the exam. These committees are key. First, we are looking at audit committee. Now, Mada, as the non-executive chair, remember her position, she has significant governance strength, knowledge, background, and she also has good, and with this, she sits on the audit, risk, CS, and the nominations committee. The only committee that she is not part of is the remuneration committee. Now, according to the rules of the UK Corporate Governance Code, each committee for a big company should have a minimum of 3 independent non-executive directors. Over here, the chairman can be part of the committee. They cannot chair the committee. Especially for audit, having chairman as part of the committee is a little bit of an issue. So if I'm looking at the audit committee, if I'm looking at the specific rules of the audit committee, the main point is to watch at Mada's presence. The table only shows that she is a member, not the chair. So this is not a direct breach, but audit needs to remain a strong source of independent challenge. So her role is very, very important. This sits within because the UK Corporate Governance Code is a principles based approach. You can go against the principles, but you have to have a valid reason. So the valid reason I am seeing as Mada being part of this committee as of now is because of her background, her experience, her knowledge in this particular segment. But the best practice would be to have another non-executive director hired who has knowledge of, let's say, business, digitization, which our board currently does not have. So it fills that gap. Plus, it will make you compliant to the rules of the corporate governance code. So the audit committee appears relatively strong because it combines governance, economics, and strategic perspectives because of the directors that are part of it. And this becomes very important for the audit committee because the audit committee is pretty much the final call taker on the internal controls, the internal processes of the company. So currently the audit committee has Mada, Ada and Amath part of it. Same way, if I go to the risk and CSR committee, there are no specific regulations for the risk and CSR committee, but again, non-executive directors are recommended. But having a dedicated risk and CSR committee is significant because it shows sustainability and CSR are very important for our business, which is very true within my vision and in my core values as well. This is further solidified by having a board level risk committee. The remuneration committee looks the cleanest from the independence perspective because it has 3 independent NEDs, no chair involvement. Nominations committee again appears acceptable, because it is fully made up of non-executive directors, supporting independence in board composition and succession planning. It has Mada again, who is part of the nominations committee. Best practice would be to have another senior independent director become part of the audit committee and the nominations committee so that these rules are completely fulfilled from our end. Plus there are gaps at the board level. Plus there is an imbalance in the number of directors, all of which could be fulfilled. So very realistic exam scenario which I am thinking of is the appointment of another non-executive director. Now, a likely governance issue is committee concentration because only 4 NEDs cover all major committees. There's a lot of overlapping, intensive, time-consuming work. So the NED pool may be too short, to cover all of this. After that, they tell us that Kwirtmak's chief internal auditor reports to the convener of the audit committee, to the leader of the audit committee, and then the audit committee obviously will bring this up at board level. So you can see the importance of the audit committee for our company. So the independence of the audit committee is very, very important, and internal audit, internal controls, the COSO model of internal control within your P3 syllabus become major revision areas. Next, they've given us Kwirtmak's principal risks. Now this is a very important aspect which they've provided to me because if you look at it, you are already if you're following my instructions, you would have already created a solid list of risks. You would already have that list created. So now you can compare it to the risk which Kwirtmak has released and see if they have missed out on anything, on any aspect. Have they missed out? So your list of risks should have a solid 12, 15, 16 odd risks noted down, and from that you will see that within our principal risks we have narrowed them down to 5 which are given as part of the pre-scene. So my question is, because these principal risks have been reported, This, what we see on our screen, is something called, or rather I would put it as a risk report, or I would put it as a risk register. These are concepts from your P3 syllabus. What is a risk report? What is a risk register? What should it include? Because this has been specifically released by Kwirtmak. So we have identified these risks. But why have we stopped on these risks? Why have other risks which are part of your list not featured here? So maybe there is an issue with risk management, risk identification, risk committee. That could be a scenario which is raised. Okay, but coming to the risks that they've given me. First is the macroeconomic or the market risk. Kwirtmak trades globally, which can leave the group exposed to economic trends such as interest rates, inflation rates. We already know this. And to mitigate this, we have a treasury department which closely monitors all the trends. Remember, our finance director doesn't have direct knowledge of treasury management, economics, interest rates, inflation rates, currency risk management. So this could be an area why this risk has been specifically again noted. Second, demand risk. Sales demand can be volatile, creating variability in reported earnings. Volatility can also make it difficult to predict demand, which can lead to overinvestment in inventory. So we have a marketing department which maintains a good relationship with major customers. Kwirtmak's sales staff ensure that customers are kept informed of potentially useful new products. So to counter the demand risk, we have a marketing department which is very, very active. Next, we have operational risk. So printers are complicated in terms of hardware and software. Any flaws or faults can create significant quality issues. And errors in 3D printed components can often cause mission critical failures. It can cause to the failure of your aircraft, car, jewelry, all of these which are high risk aspects. So our factory operations department, which falls under the operations director, pays closest possible attention to the quality of hardware. The product software department pays close attention to updating and upgrading the software that operates products and provides their interfaces to leading 3D packages. So my relationship is going to be with 3D CAD companies as well. My relationship is going to be direct with my customers as well, all of which needs to be managed. So there is an operational chance also of going wrong on the manufacturing side plus on the software side, which has been noted. There is a supply chain risk as well, because we heavily rely on third-party suppliers to provide parts and materials. They also provide spare parts if something goes wrong within our manufacturing. Any lack of availability will disrupt my operations, and defective parts can cause quality issues. So we work closely with third-party suppliers to ensure that quality standards are set and we have strong quality management systems. We already know that we follow a differentiation strategy, try to be different, try to be new, all of which is throughout my culture and also is a risk which we have identified. Next, we have regulatory risk. The nature of Kwirtmak's products can create significant exposure to the risk of penalties for non-compliance with health and safety, major risk, environmental risk, health and safety risk. So we have a legal department that pays close attention to laws and regulations. We also have high qualified NEDs who will help with this. But these are the major risks which have been identified. Macro risk, demand risk, operations risk, supply chain risk, and compliance risk. Now what I have done is to help you, I have given you a breakdown of how these risks can be managed. Because risk management from your E3 syllabus is a very important aspect, because risks are a very important aspect. So management of these risks becomes also important. So I have created a TARA, transfer, avoid, reduce, accept table for you, and how each risks relates to different topics for you over here. So first risk, macroeconomic risk. This covers your topics such as pestle, business risk, treasury risk. We need to accept this risk as much as possible because you cannot control economies. You cannot control interest rates, inflation rates. You have to try to accept them and try to reduce them as much as possible through our treasury department. Next, demand risk. This relates to my working capital management, my forecasting. Again, we need to reduce this as much as possible. Why? Because demand volatility affects my earnings, affects my inventories. So this is very important for me to reduce by forecasting better. Same way, quality risk. I have to, as much as possible, invest in prevention costs, appraisal costs, good, strong cyber security framework. Because in today's modern time, there is a major exam theme which often comes up where there has been a cyber security hack, let's say for example, and within your company. So how will this affect the business? Why did it occur? Can we use penetration testing to understand why this has occurred? What were the internal controls which were bypassed? What were the internal controls which we can set? Because this is operational risk, right? In operations, something can go wrong from the manufacturing side, software side, cyber security side, which is very important in the P3 syllabus. Supply chain risk. So supply chain management, again, cost management, we need to try to transfer this. Why? Because Kwirtmak depends heavily on third-party suppliers for parts. So working closely with suppliers reduces this risk while quality systems help prevent defective output. So put the onus on your supplier. Transfer this risk to your supplier and tell them that I want the highest quality parts. You check them, you be full of quality and then send it to me. And then last is compliance or regulatory risk. Again, this is related to your CSR, sustainability, integrated reporting, your 6 capitals of integrated reporting, highly tested, F3 syllabus. Need to reduce this as much as possible. So essentially, because Kwirtmak already has a risk and CSR committee, there is already board level reporting. The real question is whether management level risk processes underneath the committee are strong enough, which will only be possible if you have a good risk management process, if you have good risk management steps, if you have good internal control steps within your organization. And this is the importance of a risk register or a risk report, which we have already released P3 syllabus. Now, if I want to look at some topics or themes which I've already spoken about, but I noted them down for you, major being ethics. Ethical issue 100% going to be tested in the exam, please revise. Same way, there is a lot of change management which will be needed, managing resistance within the company, persuasion within the company is going to be important for our company because new technologies, new software, new factories, new international growth, new skills, new industries which we will sell to, all of which is going to be possible for Kwirtmak. And this leads to ways of growth. To grow, they can tell you, okay, we are going for a merger. What will be, we're going for an acquisition, for example. But, what are the different diversification strategies we can look at? F3 syllabus, mergers, acquisitions, diversification strategies. These are important aspects which you need to cover. Same way, what are the different joint methods of expansion or growth which you can go for? They can also tell you, okay, one part of the business is not working. We need to divest. We need to exit it. What are the exit strategies? Also, they can tell you, okay, after acquisition, what can be the post-acquisition problems or synergies that will occur? Synergies that will not occur. You'll need knowledge of these topics very importantly from our syllabus areas. And okay, you are buying a company. But if you're buying a company, you'll need to value that company as well. You'll need finance. First, you'll need to value that company. So business valuation, your asset-based valuation, your discounted cash flow-based valuation, your dividend model valuation, these valuation techniques you should know, because they can tell you, okay, how should we value this company which we are going to purchase. You'll have to tell them the basics of these valuation techniques. And after valuing, you need finance. So green financing, your new syllabus updates, green financing, sources of finance, debt, equity, what to choose, often exam questions. And if you are buying in a different currency, your currency risks come into the picture. So how do I hedge using internal methods, external methods? What are the benefits of each of these products? This is a full chapter in F3. Same way, interest rate risk. I'm going to borrow. Should I have a fixed rate, variable rate? What are the external hedging techniques for interest rate risk? There's a full chapter on this. The use of swaps, interest rate swaps, currency swaps. Just simple theory. Nobody is asking you to solve full sums. If I ask you, okay, how does a swap work? You should be able to give me 5-6 lines of simple, easy explanations in your own words. And I already pointed out the importance of interest rate parity theory or purchasing power parity theory, because it helps us understand how foreign exchange rates are going to change, which is important for my business because I am a global company. This is part 2 of your pre-scene analysis about Kwirtmak, a very important part from the understanding perspective, from the topic list perspective, and from ideas which you can use when we go to mock question writing. So very important for you to be very comfortable with part 2 first, and then we'll go to part 3, which is the financials. Now we are starting with the financial analysis, which is part 3 of this pre-scene. Now in the financial analysis, we firstly need to have knowledge about the industry, which is part 1, and the industry analysis. Secondly, we need to have knowledge about our company's operations, who is running it, what are the operations, what do we do, all of that, which is part 2. And then when we start with the financial analysis, it will give you a much better perspective. So if you see, they have given us firstly Kwirtmak Group profit or loss for the year ended 31st March. So essentially the year end is 31st March, which we need to keep in mind. And it's a group, which means already there are there are companies which are part of this group. So this is a consolidated statement where we have added all of our different subsidiaries and we are presenting their profit or loss over here. So the first thing that we'll do is we will look at the absolute numbers which CIMA has released. What you see on your screen right now is the absolute numbers. And then after the absolute numbers, we'll make an analysis for you on those numbers. Again, there are only 3 reasons for doing such a detailed financial analysis. Number 1, to understand the company's health, financial health. Number 2, to link to E3, P3 and F3 where possible. And number 3, most important, like I have been saying, so that you can use this information when the time comes. So when you go to mock question writing, you can again influence and use this information. You can, quote that, okay, our revenue has gone down, or this has gone down, or that has gone down. This is consistent, that we need to grow internationally. For example, when you include stuff like that, it automatically tells the examiner that this person has studied the pre-scene and you will 100% get credit for it. You will 100% be acknowledged for it. So be very certain and be very sure to go through the financial analysis, especially 7-8 times before the date of your exam, so these numbers make sense to you. First 2 times when you go through it, it will be like new information. But 3rd, 4th, 5th time, as you keep going through it, you will understand it better, deeper. You will find new relations and new revelations. So make sure you keep going through it multiple times. So we'll start with the absolute numbers first, like I mentioned, then moving on to the analysis. So revenue was 2856 million and it dropped to 2320 million, which means revenue declined. Now in so many years, this is the first scenario in a pre-scene where they've given us declining revenues. See, within our industry analysis that we did, it was very clearly shown that this market has an upward trajectory, which means there are sections of this market which have growth potential. But for me as a company, my revenue is declining, which means major aspects I was not able to focus on, or the major trends, the growth patterns, I was not able to focus on, and that costed me. So the revenue has declined. Naturally, because of this, the cost of goods sold will go down because we sold less, we made less, we sold less, revenue went down. Gross profit naturally will go down. All of this trickles down because the business has not shown good revenue growth. Selling and admin expenses from 47 million became 47.4 million. So a slight increase. So we sold less, but my selling and admin expenses still went up, which clearly showcases that we tried different marketing approaches, marketing techniques. That is why my selling costs also, pretty much remained the same or increased, which is a sign of, the entire business not functioning to its optimum. There was an investment in research, 285 million last year, 270 million this year. We come to my operating profit, which has declined by almost 450 million if you look at it. This 450 million is directly relevant to the revenue loss that we can see. So everything is trickling down from revenue not increasing and rather going down. Finance costs have remained the same, which means maybe no new loans were taken, no loans were repaid. So finance costs remain the same. Tax expense went down. Naturally, you made less profit, so you pay less tax. Your profit for the year from 1142 became 810. A decline from last year by close to 300 million, 350 million roughly. So essentially, the business's statement of profit or loss is showcasing a profit, but the numbers are not very encouraging when we compare it to the 2025 standard. Now, these absolute numbers, I'm sure they're very difficult for you to remember, very difficult for you to recollect, very difficult for you to use when the time comes. You can't remember that revenue was 2856 and became 2320. You can't remember all of this because it's not naturally possible. You'll have to spend a lot of time trying to remember this when there is so much else that is, there for you to remember. So rather, let me focus on going through the financials many times so that I can remember one or two of these numbers and use them when the time comes. I'm not going to ask you to remember everything and learn everything, but use it when the time comes. So when you're talking about expansion, international growth, anything that we have spoken about up until now, you can say that our revenue went up by close to 18%. Gross profit went down by close to 23%. Same way for revenue went down by 18%. Profit went down by operating profit 27%. So any one or two of these numbers, if you are able to recollect and recall and use it when the time is right, it will show solid, just solid use of the pre-scene, solid integration of the pre-scene, which the examiner will give you marks for. So revenue went down. Now the same explanations carry forward over here, but I've just presented it as percentages for you to make life easier for you. And again, you can use it when the time comes. My effective tax rate is 24%. So naturally we made less profit, so less tax was paid. R&D as a percentage of revenue last year was 9.98. This year 11.64. Why? Because revenue went down, but R&D expenditure was pretty much the same. 285, 270, but revenue has gone down by close to 450 million, 500 million. So revenue went down, but I still kept investing in research and development, which showcases my company's culture and commitment to R&D. all of my margin percentages will go down. Why? Because revenue has gone down, so profit has gone down. Essentially, these are alarm bells for the business that we need to start looking at higher demand segments, need to start being better than competitors. Everything that I spoke of has been given to you in written text as well, because I understand that you will watch the video only 2 times or so. Everything after that, you are going to keep reading this PDF. So I've given the material to you in text form as well. So while you are reading the PDFs, the material stays with you. The explanations stay with you. After that, they've given me consolidated statement of changes in equity. Let's look at share capital. It was 300 million, is 300 million. So no new shares were issued. The currency reserve was 267. This year there was a currency loss and the closing balance becomes 223. This currency loss, remember, is translation loss. We are a multinational company. We have different subsidiaries as well. We trade as well. The trade loss, if while trading, you trade in different currencies and then there is a loss, that goes to the profit or loss statement. So that foreign exchange gain or loss goes to the profit or loss. This currency reserve is the translation reserve. So you are a global company, have factories in different countries. These factories will be converted. The financial statements of your subsidiaries will be converted to e-dollars at the end of each year. There will be a difference between last year's rate, this year's rate, and there will be a book effect that occurs. That book loss this year, or rather that book this year showcased a loss of 44.3 million. Next year, when you close your accounts, if the exchange rate is favorable, this can become a profit as well. But remember, translation gets shown in the statement of changes in equity. Transaction goes to your statement of profit or loss. What is transaction risk, translation risk? F3 syllabus. Retained earnings from 1204, your profit was added. From this, a dividend was paid, and then the closing balance was arrived at. So if I look at my dividend, it's close to 50% of my profit. 53% of my profit is being paid out as dividend. This suggests Kwirtmak continues to return a significant proportion of earnings to its shareholders. So it becomes very important for us to make sure we understand. They've not given us the history of what dividends we have been paying, but we can see that a majority of the dividends have been paid out this year. So next year, there will be an expectation that maybe the same dividend is paid out. Dividends reduce, what will be the effect? Dividends increase, what will be the effect on share price? How will the share price get affected? Different dividend policies. F3 syllabus, clear direction. Different dividend policies also important for you to evaluate. Now also one thing for me to consider is, okay, the business's revenue is going down. We are investing in research and development, but we are still paying 50% out. Maybe the business doesn't have any positive NPV projects in the pipeline. Otherwise, we would build our reserves and we would use internal money, right? It would be much cheaper. 50% is being paid out of the business clearly showcases that currently we might not have any big expansion plans or big project plans when that is the need of the hour because our revenue has gone down. So we also can question a little bit of the board's decision over here, but just something to keep in mind that, okay, 50% was paid out as dividend. Next, we are going to the statement of financial position, my balance sheet. First, I will cover my asset side. So property, plant and equipment from 2321 went up to 2551. So two reasons why there could be an increase. We purchased new property, plant and equipment, or there was an upward revaluation in the current property, plant and equipment. Goodwill 118 remained 118, so there was no amortization of goodwill or no new businesses were purchased, because if you would purchase a business, the goodwill of that business would get added over here. So no new businesses were purchased, it has remained the same, there has been no amortization of goodwill as well. Intangible assets from 422 went to 497. So intangible assets have increased, which will be our patents, our trademarks, all of the intangible assets went up. This brings me to my total non-current assets, pretty standard. For my current assets, inventory has gone down, trade receivables have gone up, bank has gone down, but I don't want to make any extra analysis or over analysis over here because the numbers are pretty much in a range which we do not need to be completely alarmed about because of the position of the company. On the equity side, share capital remained the same. Currency reserve, remember we made a loss, so it has gone down. Retained earnings went up because the profit was added. Nothing alarming again. Borrowings are remaining the same, 1350. Payables went down, liability went down, pretty standard equity side, pretty standard asset side. No new alarming changes have occurred. Same way, I'll give you the analysis for this now. See, I have calculated some ratios over here to understand my company's position better. The major two ratios we'll focus on is ROCE and gearing. Firstly, ROCE, because this is a very important measure for any company that's listed. Because when I am listed and somebody wants to invest in my company, they'll think, what will I get back on my investment? Currently, our company is giving 33% back. Last year, it was giving 51%. This has gone down because your operating profit has gone down by a big number. So you are still a lucrative business to invest in. 33% is still very high, but it has gone down compared to last year. So it might be something that investors are looking at. All of your ratios are going to be affected because revenue, the major driving factor for any business, has taken a hit. Same happened to non-current asset. Non-current assets went up, revenue went down. So this year we used our assets less efficiently to generate revenue. Last year it was 1x, this year it became 0.73. So for every $1 invested in assets, the return is 0.73 cents. Something little bit of a concern which needs to be looked at. All of these figures, again, revenue goes up, everything will start looking positive. Same way, we have our liquidity ratios, current ratio, quick ratio. Now I won't focus too much on these ratios because they are pretty standard. Current ratio, the ideal is 2:1. Currently it's 1.87. So I'll say it's not too much of a worry. Quick ratio 1:1. Currently it's 1:1. So liquidity wise, we are good. For gearing, from 43%, it went to 39%. Why? Because the capital employed gets affected because of your increase in profit. Remember, your capital employed figure gets affected because the retained earnings went up. So if my retained earnings go up, my borrowings remain the same, my gearing slows down or goes down even though my borrowings have remained the same. From 43%, gearing became 39%. Now this is very important for me to understand because it showcases that currently my business has little bit of debt capacity. Remember, debt is cheaper than equity. We know this concept. Why? Because debt is tax deductible. So currently 40% of my money or funds are coming from gearing, roughly 60% from equity. So if I'm going for any new projects, I still have a gearing percentage cushion, or I still have some debt cushion. I can still take on some debt because that will reduce my overall cost of capital, because again, debt is cheaper than equity. So when you are suggesting something for our company, keep this gearing ratio in mind, try to use it when the time comes, so that you can write, okay, currently our gearing has gone down to 39%. We could look to debt finance to finance this project. So, using something like that showcases to the examiner that this person has studied the company, knows the company, is the senior manager for this company. That will add a lot of advantage to your preparations and to your exam integration as well. So these two figures you can try to remember and use when the time comes. Explanations of the same have been presented over here so that you can read when you are going through the pre-scene yourself as well. Now they've given us something very interesting, which is extracts from my competitors' financial statements. So they've given me some extracts from my competition, some details about my competition. It's important for me to know my competition because from my financial analysis, it has been very clear that my revenue is going down, my profit is going down, I might be losing market share. So it becomes very important for me to understand what my competitor is doing, how my competitor is doing it, and what the strengths of my competitor are, so that I can also move in the right direction, because the overall market is growing, we know that, but my share is reducing. So Kwirtmak is one of 8 major manufacturers of industrial 3D printers. So total there are 8, one of which you are. Most of these compete directly with Kwirtmak. So there is huge competition between these 8 people or 8 companies, because everybody is selling the same product to the same customer. Bresco is Kwirtmak's closest competitor. It sells a very similar range of 3D printers and materials, very similar. It's also based in England, it's quoted on the stock exchange. The other major manufacturers are based abroad, but all compete in the same markets as Kwirtmak and Bresco. So there are 8 total, 2 are in England, Kwirtmak and Bresco. Bresco is very similar to Kwirtmak, but overall everybody is selling to the same market only. So it's very clear that there are 8 manufacturers, so there is going to be high competitive rivalry which you will have to be aware of. So how you differentiate yourself from these competitors? Why should somebody buy your printer and not Bresco's? You should have something different, some quality, some innovation, some customer service, something different you will need to do to stay away and apart from the competition. So the existence of 8 major manufacturers competing in the same markets suggests the industrial 3D printing sector has developed into a more established competitive industry. There are already players in this market. This market is within its growth phase where people have entered the market, established their space. It's a big market, it's growing, we know that. So from the industry life cycle perspective, it's going to be a competitive market. So this gives me the knowledge of the market, and this tells me to further be aware that if I am going to survive in this market, I will have to do something new, different, innovative to stay ahead. After that, they have given me Bresco's financial statements. So very similar financial statements have been given to us for Bresco. So now it becomes very important for us to compete and compare what we are doing and what Bresco is doing. So what I have done is, I'm just going to, as part of this pre-scene PDF, we have everything laid out for you. So you'll see Bresco's profit or loss, then the analysis, changes in equity analysis, financial position analysis, and then the comparative financial statements as well. Just for better explanation and presentation, what I'm going to do is I have put the information for you side by side on one slide, so that when I explain it, it's better. When you read through the PDF, you'll any which ways be covering this stuff, but just to make it more understandable, better, interactive for you, I have put it like this over here. So first, let's do an analysis of the actual numbers. So first, we'll look at Kwirtmak, which we on the left hand side, which we've already gone through. But just comparing the revenue figures for Bresco and Kwirtmak, you'll see that their revenue from 2744 increased to 3000 million, close to a 300 million increase, whereas I faced a 500 million decrease. So very very stark difference in both the companies which are selling same products. So maybe Bresco has innovated something new, come up with something new, a new type of printer, a new type of use that more of its printers are selling. My printers are going down, their revenue is going up. This will naturally lead to a higher cost of goods sold for them because they manufactured more. They could sell more, and then eventually their gross profit has also increased. Their selling and admin expenses are higher than mine, showcasing that okay, maybe more selling expenses were incurred because more printers were sold. They also invest heavily within research. So essentially, Bresco now has a bigger profit share than me. Its profit was 1145, 300 million more than mine. Its revenue at this stage is 700 million more than mine. And these are big numbers that we are talking about. So if I look at the statement of profit or loss, we can see that in revenue terms, Bresco is, last year, I was the bigger company. Because last year, Bresco was 2744, I was 2856. But this year, in terms of revenue, Bresco has overtaken us. And in terms of profit as well, they have overtaken us naturally because their revenue showcased a healthy increase. So if I look at the comparative figures, these are worrying signs and signs for me to be very aware of this from now itself so that we can change it before it's too late, so that we can understand what's going on in this market and make changes before it's too late. If you look at revenue, my revenue decreased and their revenue went up by close to 10%. This will have a direct effect on all of our profits because revenue went down, all of my profits have gone down. But for them, revenue has gone up. So their profits will be very, very, very positive. Essentially, if you look at the margins, their margins are better than us. If you look at the operating margin, the profit after tax margin, their margin is better than mine. So eventually, this year, Bresco has performed much better in terms of revenue, in terms of profit. It's a company that is growing. Use these things within your answer. When you're talking about competition analysis, you can say that our competitor Bresco has already overtaken us compared to last year because their revenue is growing. When you write things like that, it clearly showcases to the examiner that okay, this person has studied the pre-scene, knows the pre-scene, and this gives you your integration skill marks. That is very big value. So that's the comparative statement of profit or loss. Let's look at the changes in equity. Remember, I paid out 50% of my profits as dividend. Bresco has paid up 70% of its profits as dividends. So maybe paying high dividends is a very important part of this market and of this industry, because shareholders are going to be happy if dividends are paid, and essentially if your company is continuing to increase its revenue, then share price will also increase. Shareholders will be happy. So the a question around this very similar in the exam can be, okay, can we cut our dividends further? Already our dividends are lower than Bresco. Can we cut our dividends further? What signal will this send? What will be the effect on our share price. These are very realistic exam questions which come up, which you will have to know over here that okay, Bresco has paid out 70% of dividends, I have paid out 53%, my dividend number is 432 million, theirs is 800 million, so I am paying already less dividend compared to them, where my profits are also declining. Can I continue to pay this dividend? These are questions which you should be very, very clear about and know. This is only possible because we are doing this financial analysis together. Same way, we'll now analyze the statement of financial position. So looking at the asset base, let's look at the asset base for our company, which is 3,167 million. Theirs is 4,384 million. So maybe, they were investing in assets since a long time, because last year also their assets were 3250 and mine were 2321. So maybe they were already investing into assets, and right now they were able to scale up, they were able to use their property, plant and equipment well to generate and develop good profits, because their asset base is higher than me. So I can now know that Bresco, in terms of revenue, in terms of profit, is ahead of me. In terms of just being a bigger company also, it's ahead of me because its asset base is more than mine, significantly more than mine, close to 1,200 million. If you look at the total assets as well, you'll see mine was 3,800 roughly, theirs was 5,100. So we are, or rather we are a smaller company than Bresco in terms of asset base, even though we are selling the same products to the same people. So maybe Bresco was able to use their property, plant and equipment well to develop something new, or it was able to use its intangible assets well to come up with a new printer which it could sell more this year. So there is no, if you look at the equity side, there was no share capital also which Bresco issued this year. Their borrowings also remained the same, 1400. So essentially on the liability side, nothing too alarming, but this clearly tells us that Bresco is a bigger company than me. If I look at ROCE, they are pretty similar. Why? Because my asset base is smaller. Remember, I am generating my revenue with a smaller asset base. So my return is higher. So even though my revenue went down, my ROCE still held firm at 34%, which is pretty much same for both companies. I am able to use my non-current assets more efficiently currently. But Bresco has greatly improved on this from last year, because their asset base from 3250 went to 3571. But also there was a 10% increase in their revenue. So this year, even though they invested in assets, their revenue went up, and that is why their non-current ratio has improved. Current ratio, quick ratio for both the companies, I'll say, is pretty stable in terms of liquidity. Gearing, you'll see for me is close to 40%. For Bresco is close to only 30%. So they have more debt capacity than me currently. So I will have to be very clear in how I raise my finance moving on, because this ratio will keep getting worse if I keep taking more and more debt. It doesn't mean that you have to reduce your ratio to Bresco's, but it just means when investors are comparing both companies, they will look at this. So you should have a justifiable reason that okay, your gearing from 39 went to 43. So okay, you use debt finance, but that project should be a positive NPV project. It should be a cutting edge project. It should be something that's going to increase your revenue eventually. If it's a justifiable, debt or equity measure which you take, it's okay. So keeping my sources of finance in mind and the positions of myself and my competitors in mind becomes a very important comparison, because it's provided to us within this pre-scene analysis. Going back to my pre-scene document now, because we have completed our competition analysis where we have learned a lot about our competitor. So after making this comparison, we move to Kwirtmak's share price history. This is a very important discussion because very many exam questions are based around this. If you look at our share price, you will see a lot of spikes and drops, spikes. It's very, very volatile. So in 2021 to early 2022, the share price rose very sharply from a low base to well above $500. This suggests a period of very strong investor optimism. From 2022 to 2023, the price remained highly volatile with a lot of ups and downs. 550 became 500, became 250, again 350, again 300, a lot of ups and downs. This suggests the market was uncertain and reacted strongly to news, which is consistent with the company which has seen high growth but is also within high risk. 2023 and 2024 overall, the share price weakened and moved to much lower levels. 2023 and 2024, all the changes were below the $200 base. So 21 to 23, period of high growth, where a lot of share price increases were seen. Top was 550. 2023 and 2024 remained under $200. Then again, in 2024, a huge rise to close to $500, then again a drop, again a rise, and now it's starting to be at its possible lowest. If you see now, 2026, the share price fell significantly and ended at a relatively low level, well below the earlier highs. Right now, it's well below $100. My highest was 550. So you can see that Kwirtmak's share price has been highly volatile. And this is very much related. Right now, it's at its lowest because our revenue is declining. This will send a negative market signal, right? So it's going to be very important for me to be aware of my current financial position, of my current share price position, and the need for an overhaul or an overturn or a diversification or a divestment or anything to manage this decline. So very volatile and very high risk. We are coming to the beta factor discussion, which is going to be a very important discussion. But from the share price itself, you can see it's very volatile and a very high risk share. Investor confidence is pretty much unstable. So the repeated spikes and falls suggest that investor sentiment has changed quickly over time. Confidence appears to be sensitive to developments in performance, growth, expectations. So if you perform well, share price goes up. If you grow well, if you do better than your competition, share price goes up. So currently Bresco's share price will be better than mine. Now this sends a lot of negative signals because the sustained fall towards the end of the chart combined with a very high beta suggests concerns about risks, earnings volatility, and the company's ability to deliver to its shareholders. But the positive over here is at many times we have overcome this. If you look at the share prices, many times it has fallen and many times it has risen again. So we are able to come out of this if we focus on growth, technology, diversification, position ourselves better. That's the positive. The negative is obviously that we are at our lowest stage right now in terms of our share price. A very important revelation over here is that my beta is 2.3. There's a full section on beta, systematic risk, unsystematic risk within your F3 syllabus. It's a very important revision area. So firstly, a beta of 2.3 means that it's firstly very high, which means its share price is much more volatile. If your share price is equal to 1, it means, okay, if your beta is equal to 1, it means your share price moves in retrospect to the market. So the market goes up, your share price will go up. Market goes down, your share price will go down. Below 1, inversely proportional to the market. But above 1 means if your beta is above 1, it very clearly means that you are a very high risky company. If the market moves by 1, or let's say if the market reduces by 1, your share price will reduce by 2.3. If your market increases by 1, your share price will go up accordingly. But means it's a very high volatile share price. A high beta would increase my cost of equity, my cost of debt also, because people will look at my company and see that, okay, this is such a risky company. If I am giving you money, I want good return on my money. So I will charge you a higher interest rate. So cost of equity, cost of debt will be high for us because our beta is very, very high. So when you are using the CAPM, capital asset pricing method, this cost of equity feeds into the CAPM, cost of debt feeds into the CAPM, and this essentially gives you your cost of capital, the money which you are using within your business. What's the cost of that money? Same way with F3 investor relations. A beta of 2.3 means shareholders are likely to expect high returns. That's why probably you are paying out 50% of your profit as dividends, because shareholders will want this return. So what if your revenue keeps declining? Can you pay this much dividend? The high beta suggests that the market believes Kwirtmak is exposed to significant strategic risk, which means your strategies can fall. Your strategies can falter. A beta of 2.3 means Kwirtmak has high systematic risk, which is risk driven by overall market movements and cannot be diversified away. This is different from unsystematic risk, which is company specific, such as product failure, supplier problems. See, if you look at the market, 3D printers are not an everyday requirement. Cars, food, all of this is everyday requirement. So market goes up or down, there will be still demand for your product. But 3D printers are like a luxury, innovative item. If the market goes down, people will save their money and not buy 3D printers. So that is systematic risk which you cannot really diversify away. Unsystematic risk like product failure, yes, you can diversify by selling new products. But market risk, market movements, something that you cannot really directly control, right? So beta of 2.3 means, like I already told you, if the market falls by 10%, your share price will fall by 23%. This showcases that Kwirtmak shares are expected to be much more sensitive. F3 again. So this beta factor analysis for me, what does beta mean? Your cost of equity, your cost of debt, your systematic risk, unsystematic risk, how this beta affects your capital asset pricing model, how this beta will affect your business valuations. This is very, very important to study. That brings me to my next section, which is sustainability analysis. Now, a lot has been spoken about sustainability through the new syllabus changes. F3 having green financing, E3 having Gen AI. But essentially, sustainability has now become a theme, which is going to be more and more and more tested, especially on the SCS level. They've told us that our company is committed to sustainability because we already have a risk and CSR committee, which you'll know about. But we also have a sustainability report, or rather an analysis provided. So Kwirtmak's operations director has specific responsibility for sustainability. The operations director is expected to report on sustainability issues. The risk and CSR committee reports to the director then discusses it at the board. The structure of the CSR is, or the structure of sustainability reporting at the company is being discussed. So strategy, 3D printing offers several benefits for the promotion of sustainability because we can use efficient or rather efficient use of material, less wastage, so it's better than traditional manufacturing. So 3D printing can be marketed to be sustainable. Recycling, many of the plastics used in 3D printing can be recycled. 3D printers can be located close to the point of use. So there is no transportation, which means your carbon footprint is reduced. So this could be a strategy which I market around to increase my revenues, to become more relevant. Can the sustainability marketing be brought out? Because already we are doing all of this. Now, Kwirtmak takes care to ensure compliance with all environmental legislation. Environmental risk coming to the picture over here. Tomorrow environmental issues or rules can change. You need to make sure that you are aligned with those rules. So Kwirtmak engages with governments and other regulators with a view to assisting sustainability targets. All staff are empowered to halt operations in the event of any serious environmental concerns. So we are very serious about sustainability, which is very clear within this sustainable report. So when you are writing anything about sustainability reporting, when you are writing anything about, let's say, integrated reporting, your 6 capitals, which are very important from the SCS perspective, you can include stuff like this within your answer. It will showcase to the examiner that this person has studied the pre-scene. Again, same like your financials, you can use the metrics of sustainability. So Kwirtmak pays close attention to the impact of machines that it sells on the environment. It aims to enhance the sustainability. For example, the energy consumption associated with printing was reduced by 32% through adjustments to the nozzle temperature and the thickness layers or in building up items. So then they've given us a comparison of energy consumption and recyclability of 3D printing materials. So you will see in terms of energy consumption, there are certain types of materials which need more energy consumption, like stainless steel, like titanium, but they are 80 to 100% recyclable. Same for nylon, same for PLA, same for ABS. Ceramic is pretty much, let's say, 70% or so recyclable, but the power usage for each of these materials varies. So if we let's say have printers which use stainless steel and titanium, it will consume a lot of energy. So how do we reduce energy consumption and increase recyclability? Becomes a very important innovation area for us to look at, which we've already done for PLA by reducing 32% of the energy consumption. That's why it's come to the 1 kilowatt per hour or kg section. You'll see it's in the first line, PLA. So we as a company are very much giving to the environment, aware of the environment. These are pretty much differentiations that your company can do, which you must quote when the time comes within your answers. So Kwirtmak has a structured sustainability framework. We know that. A major sustainability strength is the nature of additive manufacturing itself, which is our business. A 32% reduction in energy consumption per kilogram of PLA processed is a strong quantifiable ESG metric and provides evidence of real operational improvement. However, this benefit is not consistent for all materials. Metals remain energy intensive, which we know. So with revenue declining, there is a risk that sustainability investment could come under cost cutting pressure. Very important for me as a business to be aware of what my situation is. Firstly, you need to sell more. After selling more, you can, keep investing within sustainability initiatives. But your major bottom line first has to be strong. This is the sustainability analysis. Now we come up to the news analysis section. Now the news analysis section I don't always go through. I'm not going to go through it because it's something that students need to read through at their own pace, at their own time, slowly and steadily. It's something which we have already summarized for you, already related to Kwirtmak for you, but it doesn't mean that news analysis is not important. Rather, it's very important. That is why I want you to first go through it. Why is it important? Because a lot of unseen themes in the exam are picked up from the news analysis section. A lot of unseen themes. So first news analysis section or first news story is happy comic readers. And this particular news story has some questions. The first question is, why can't a 3D printer make a bicycle wheel? So the answer explains that hobbyist 3D printers are limited in size and typically use plastic materials which are not strong enough to support structural loads. So maybe they can now say that, okay, Kwirtmak is coming up with a 3D printer for hobbyists, not for industrial uses, which we have been doing till now. Maybe that can be an expansion area. So the important points for me to note is the product has some capability limitations, material strengths, or can my current printers be used for hobbyists? Can I change them, modify them a little bit and they can be used for hobbyists? Plastic based outputs lack load bearing capacity, reinforces the need for material printing technologies, or rather metal printing technologies, sorry, but this consumes high electricity, which we know. But this entire news section is speaking about hobbyists using 3D printers. So that's the theme over here. There's also a misconception that 3D printers can make anything. There's an expectation gap that customers have. Risk of customer dissatisfaction if expectations are not managed. So very clear guidelines of where, how 3D printers can be used is needed. Second, how was a perfect motorcycle bracket created? So the company likely used 3D scanning to capture the existing part, edit the digital model to remove the defects, and then produce a highly accurate replacement using advanced 3D printing technologies. This is essentially the use case of 3D printers. So important points for me is to remember that, okay, you need to justify why you can't make certain products and why you can make certain products, like a wheel, which was the first article, like a bracket, which is the second article. So your use case is going to be very important within this market. Next news story we have is growing demand for carbon fiber as a material. So the article highlights the increasing global demand for carbon fiber, a material made from organic polymers that is both lightweight and strong. It is widely used in industries such as automotive and aerospace. Additionally, applications are expanding into consumer products like sports equipment, bicycle frames, tennis rackets. So this becomes important for me at Kwirtmak to figure out how can we expand to use carbon fiber as a material. How can my printers become or use carbon fiber, because I already have aerospace and automotive customers. So something for you to keep in mind again as a material expansion. So first article was pretty much about the use case expansion, hobbyists. Second is about material expansion. Third, Enland Daily, medical profession making greater use of 3D printing. I've already spoken about this as a theme and 100% expect this as an unseen in the exam as well. To maybe 3D printing companies or even Kwirtmak expanding to making body parts such as dental implants, heart valves, artificial limbs using 3D printers. But your 3D printer should be capable of creating these. So specifications, what you will need, how you will expand, because this is a high growth area for us to be aware of and a high risk area as well. So this is the entire pre-scene analysis completed. The news analysis section I have quickly gone through with you, but I will expect you to carefully read through the news analysis section. That brings me to the end of my pre-scene analysis. This is not a one-time game. You will have to go through the pre-scene multiple times. 2 to 3 times you'll have to just watch the video to let things sink in. And trust me, from the 4th, 5th, 6th time when you read the PDF, automatically you'll understand. Automatically things will set into your mind. Automatically you'll be able to make better relations. This is the pre-scene analysis completed. Thank you.